Not get contacted, no. If there's any follow-up or anything.
No, missed church on Sunday, sorry.
Okay.
Can I ask everybody before we start the meeting, if you could just take a second to silence your cell phones if you haven't done that already? I appreciate it. Make the same announcement in the church. I'll do it here too.
Upton, is that how you say your last name?
All right. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. It's 9 a.m. Monday, October 19th, 2020. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Town Council of Fort Myers Beach, with all members present. We'll start with the invocation, followed by the pledge. Please stand.
As we discuss the business of the town today, help us to keep focused on what is best for the good of all, and not just for one or for some. Remembering that our labors are with the vision of continuing to build the town of Fort Myers Beach into the best place it can possibly be for residents, visitors, and businesses alike. It is with gratitude that we serve in these positions of authority that have been entrusted to us by the people of the town. Guide us in listening, interpreting, and deciding well. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Next item on the agenda, the approval of the final agenda.
I'd like to move to remove D from the consent agenda to the administrative agenda just for a few questions, and if no one objects to that amendment, I would move to approve the final agenda with that modification.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next item is public comment. Madam Clerk.
Along with the email you've all been distributed, we have Gail Mason.
I'll just read that while we're waiting here. This email that we were handed this morning, I'll read it into the record. It's from Tracy Brunner, property manager at Caper Beach Club. Good morning. The Caper Beach Club has been communicating with a few of your associates at the town regarding an ongoing drainage issue we've been dealing with on Seaview Street and was hoping you would offer some guidance. Caper Beach Club residents have reported for the past few years flooding on Seaview Street and was ecstatic to see it was finally scheduled to be repaired this summer. The repaving project was completed in August, but much to our dismay has caused even more flooding than previously. On August 6th, I sent an email to Chelsea O'Reilly with my concerns, and she stated that no elevation changes occurred with the repavement of the road, nor any stormwater improvements were made, but that she would forward my flooding concerns to the stormwater department. As of today, I still haven't heard back from anyone from that department. Our main concern is when it rains, it floods Seaview Street, and people are trying to walk beach access number 23 are now cutting through our property to avoid walking through the standing water. This has now turned into a safety and liability concern for our association. I would like to invite you to our property to show you the area of concern in hopes of some sort of resolution. Thank you for your time. Tracy Brunner, Caper Beach Club. Okay. Speaker?
Gail Mason.
Morning.
Gail Mason, I'm here on behalf of the Arches again, which kind of relates to a lot of the park improvements and what have you. We originally started with discussions with both the county and the town. Everybody knows that we've been trying to find a place to put some reconstruction of the Arches. I feel at this point, with the last set of emails and communications that I've seen, that stakeholders have been left out of this entire process. We have tried and needed to work one-on-one with the county and the town to try and find something that would be workable. And although we worked very well with Mr. Pendergrass for a while, it got passed off to county staff, and I think problems with county staff and president of Restore the Arches, who sometimes speaks for himself instead of the whole group. I feel left out, and I feel like we still need to have some kind of a discussion. When Mr. Pendergrass was doing it, he was all about the county funding it and everything. We never intended for the county or the town to fund it. It's going to be self-funded. We're just looking for some place to put them. There's been discussion about size, although some of that got lost in the transition, I think, as well. And before everything gets etched in stone, I think we really need to sit down with all of the powers that be and find out, as I've said before, what's possible, what's not possible, what's possible but not probable, to see where, if we can work something out with either the town or the county in the Greater Beach area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jason Ingram, and after Jason will be John Lalo.
Hello, I'm Jason Ingram. I own Mangaritas down here on the beach, and the concerns we have with some of the renovation, the final renovation, maybe concerns with the structures that we're planning for, shade structures. Currently, you all know we all use different umbrellas at hodgepodge. Some of the structural changes that are in that final design, I guess my question will be, who will maintain those structures on a daily basis? We know right now the birds are an issue down there, so those structures are going to get filthy quick. The other concern would be if there is an issue with it structurally, electrically, because they're going to be a louvered thing, who's going to take care of that? Are we responsible as the property owner, PC? And cost of that, is that going to be put into something that we are responsible for? And if so, will it be spread out over a certain period of time? Which, we're open to at least for our restaurant. Other issues may be parking. I know that some of the folks have parking spaces that are allocated to them. Agreements, like in the final project, some of those parking spaces disappear. So those are just some of the concerns that I have for that final project, and I'd very much like to be, if possible, if we're going to make any change, us businesses, and possibly see if there is something else that part of that project. And in the beginning, we were part of that project, and the last final iteration didn't seem like we were involved in. Going forward, it would be nice if we were involved in that also. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Lalo.
John Lalo, Pete's Timeout. First of all, we were told about this Friday, Beach Talk Radio, that the final approval is going to be done. Nobody's notified the business owners, property owners, anyone. Okay? 3 minutes is not enough to talk. I wear a lot of hats. I'm a business owner, I'm a property owner, and I'm vice president of Times Square Merchants Association. Can't cover all the things I need to cover with you guys in this. Can touch on a couple things real quick. We were never privately consulted since the workshop when we were asked to be part of this process, because this is being shoved to us. It's like, okay, this is going to be your new frontage. We're business owners. We know how to work our businesses, make them successful. We weren't consulted. We gave ideas in the first workshop, and then it was just taken to the next level, and nobody was contacted ever since. Main issues are, look at these beautiful pictures. They're beautiful, just like the county presented to us when they did the Times Square, but they did not solve infrastructure problems. Lighting is huge in your pictures. All the lighting, it's white light. What's wrong with white light? Turtles. Where's that light coming from? Are these structures going to have electric? Is the lights going to be on there? What about fans? About weather? How do we protect our customers in the weather? Umbrellas seem to work pretty good. Now we're going to have open pergolas, or we're going to have canopies that drip all over. Birds, another issue. Stage. The stage looks beautiful, but it has a backdrop. Are we going to lose our view looking through for the beautiful sunsets? You guys can't create a sunset. You can create a stage, but you can't create a sunset. Or is your stage going to take away from the sunset with the backdrop? Look through it. How do you protect the bands during a weather storm or something? They have thousands of dollars of equipment out there. Build it, do you think they're going to come? Just because you're building a pretty thing, I'm not putting $10,000 worth of equipment if I can't protect it. Have the permitting. Very, very cumbersome to do permitting on the stage. We, as the Times Square Merchants Association, have to go through probably a stack like this. It takes us about a week and a half to get our yearly permit. Who's going to be in charge of that? Do you, as the council, do you form a committee that's in charge of, what do I want to say, scheduling all these events so they don't go over top of each other and stuff? I'm out of time.
Oh, John, go ahead. I'll give you a couple more minutes. Just wrap up your thoughts.
Permitting process is really big. Okay, so for instance, you want high school bands to come in. They have to go through the whole permitting process, or are we going to allow them just to come in? Choir, this and that. Build the price of the square footage in the lease increase when you build all this. That's huge. We can only serve so many people a year out of there. We're already at the top of what we can afford to pay. Okay? I know you all say this is the property in Lee County. Well, why haven't you been taking care of it for the last 3 years? Nobody's painted the square. Now you're going to build this new beautiful thing with no maintenance program again. And when we sat in a workshop, they said, well, we can't force other councils to do this. Just how are you going to spend all this money and not take care of it and make sure it's taken care of? This is our livelihood that we're dealing with. My whole life is in this business for the last 30 years come December. 7 years prior to that. I speak with a lot of emotion. Every one of you probably dealt with me with emotion at one time or another, but we just need answers. And I just feel that we've been railroaded again, that we weren't part of the process. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thomas Houghton?
Hi, my name's Thomas Houghton. I'm the owner of Lola Surfside Restaurant.
Say that again, please.
I'm the owner of La Ola Surfside Restaurant,
Oh, okay.
and 35 Estero Boulevard. I'm on the end. I want to say I agree with everything Jason and John already shared. Only concerned that we have not been involved at all since that first work. Individual concerns, Jason touched on it, but plans continue to show redevelopment of parking spots I have, and as well leased parking spots that the Spindle Factory has. We change that. Anytime I've been asked, I've said I've sent emails. I said I'm not willing to give up the parking spot. The owner of the building, Chris, has been contacted. I know he contacted. As far as it be, listened to him a little bit, but and something by me about moving the spot like right out into the intersection. I told him I was not interested. What contacted me. So I really hope that the design will do that because is least to me. In addition to that, Ridley talked about water issues. Water half the time right in front of you, and I free to go into local color and first 3 or 4 feet all through that easement area. Underwater, there was a little drain put in there that doesn't connect to anything. So it goes down into rocks, pulls up. Everyone's sediment comes to that area, so it's really nasty water that's that, and then you get the drain 10 feet from it that also puts off some odors. That's right in our square. So I really hope that then a lot more thought put into how things are going to drain, and hopefully it will drain out into the center square and not onto one person's. Really would have appreciated it, or if this could be delayed, could be involved a little bit more. I'm hoping for today on the final approval. So the business owners have been consulted. I also would like to put out there that I think we should be the owners of these structures. We should be the ones maintaining them. Maybe guys could be the town could be the purchaser, and then it could be put in our lease that we pay for it over the term. So we could get a longer term lease. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All I have.
Close the public comment. Thank you, everyone. Excuse me. Next item is local achievements and recognitions. This morning we're going to recognize our town employees that have been here for multiple years of dedicated service to the town, and come down and we'll pass out some pins and so forth. And from the south and to the north.
Marching through.
Misty Alexander, 5 years.
So 5 years.
You see their title too, Amy, where they work?
Which department?
Oh, I cannot write
Works
at
at,
the moment.
works at the Mound House. But Misty, why don't you just say
Misty
where you
works
work?
at Mound House, though.
Thank you, Misty.
Thank you.
Nello Cernoya, he's one of our base employees.
All the fives right
5
next to
years.
you. Always a pleasure.
Okay.
Doug Malloy, he's our base worker. 5
Parking
years.
manager.
Congratulations.
Austin Gilchrist, 5 years.
It's been that long, huh? Congratulations.
Kevin Shevashevsky is not here today. He's also 5 years. And Todd Sears is not here. He's 5 years, and they both work for base. Patty Prevost. 5 years. These are all 5 years. Ryan Bellows. 5 years. One of our public works workers. Anthony Sire. 5 years. Public Works.
They get you out of here. All right.
Allison Geeson, 5 years. Warren Rude, 5 years. Utilities.
Congratulations.
Pat Harper is not here today. She's also with Utilities for 5 years. That's just the case.
We're going to 10.
It's just the box for that. And Christy Corey, Utilities, 5 years.
Only 5? Seems like
Longer than that, but with our town for 5. Okay, now we have 10 years. Sarah Mayer's 10 years, and she is not here today. She works over at Bay Oaks. Martin Pitts with our Public Works Department. Jim D'Amelia, Public Works, 10 years.
Jim.
Go, Jim. Thank you. Now 15 years. Mark Lefebvre, Tunes.
Boom. Come on.
He's with Public Works. Don Hanyo, Public Works, 15 years. Then we have 1 20-year for Michelle Mayer, and she is not here today either.
Oh, this is for you, Bill. Thanks for your 20. One of our originals.
All right.
Thank you all very much for your service. Anybody like Okay. Does anybody want to add anything? Any comments to that ceremony? Okay. Okay, the next item is advisory committees, items and reports. Do we have any committees here this morning represented? No. Moving. Next item is the approval of the minutes of the October 5th, 2020 meeting. Motion to approve the minutes.
I'd like to do an amendment. I also disclosed ex parte communications in the form of a drive-by. That's on page 4 of the minutes, page 9 of the packet. And unless anybody else has an amendment, I would move to approve the amendment, the minutes as amended.
Any other amendments to the minutes? Is there a second to the Vice Mayor's motion?
Second it.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Next item is we're going to have a little presentation from Lee County, and we're honored this morning to have our friends from the county here, Commissioner Ray Sandelli and County Manager Roger Desjardins. So we welcome you guys, and whoever, I don't know, who else do we have? You guys can let me know who else is here, but right in the front here.
Good morning, and thank you very much for the opportunity to come back and present this to you. And also, congratulations to all the service this morning. It's great to have people that keep our government stable as we go forward in a number of different issues. I had a chance to have breakfast with the 3 new members, so thank you for affording me the time to get to know each of you a little bit better. Very much appreciated. It's been a busy and kind of crazy year for all of us. And people often ask me, what did you enjoy most? And I think the work that we did on this project is one of the things that I enjoyed most. And the reason I did that is because it came from the town first. This is our thoughts. This is what we think. And then we were engaged. We sat down together a number of times, worked through it, kind of tweaked it, see what worked. And we finally came to a consensus between the town and the county. And I think that's how it should be, And then we presented that to FDOT. And it was like, you guys agree on everything? Town agrees, you agree? Sounds good, and I think they made some additional concessions for us. So, to me, it was one of the highlights of this past year, which was crazy. So, I'm going to turn this over to the guys who really know this stuff, and from DOT will do the heavy lifting. Thank you.
There's Randy. Thank you, Commissioner.
Morning, Council. Thank you for having us. If you remember back after
Just give your name and your position with the.
Randy Searcy, Lee County Department of Transportation.
Thank you, Randy.
Remember after the Seafarers real estate deal took place years back, and after segment one of the beach was started, we got down the beach a little bit out of everybody's hair. Segment one was a nightmare. It was so tight, not much room to work. Once we got past that and the Seafarers, we started looking, what can we do at the base of the bridge? We knew we'd have to do something there. At the same time, FDOT was beginning their PD&E, a project development and environmental study on the corridor from the Hurricane Bay Bridge on San Carlos Island all the way to Crescent Street. Those two things were happening at the same time. We came up with a model for at the end of the bottom of the bridge. The town had an idea, and then we also looked at a roundabout, and we'll look at those three now. We came down here on March 2nd this year. Seems like 300 years ago now after this year. I guess we're down here March 2nd, and what we showed you then. Go ahead and start the modeling there. Why do it? This was the first model. It was a traffic oval. They wanted to see what a traffic oval would do. We loaded these on this simulation modeling that we had. We loaded these with non-first season peak hour traffic, like afternoon peak hour going home at 3 or 4 in the afternoon type thing. So it's pretty much an average of the year. You see the backups both coming on the bridge and trying to leave the island with a roundabout. That's due because anybody in the roundabout has the right of way. Therefore, those other traffic coming on the bridge and exiting the island can't move at that point in time. Next was a model similar to what we had thought, developed by the town. I'm not very versed at your clip. Again, this has a couple of pedestrian crossing aspects. Seems to tie traffic up as well that we went over back in March. Third model was what we called a beach oval. Was the model that seems to work best given all the circumstances and the traffic volumes that we put in each of the models. You can see it's split onto the Seafarers property. Go ahead.
Could you just explain that one in detail? Because
Right.
I don't think we can see it, and I doubt the people at home can see it either.
Breaks out the off traffic leaving. A light, a new splits the traffic leaving property. Model that.
Randy, could you say that again at your microphone? Because I think that'll be really interesting to people watching. Thank you.
Yes, again, that model splits the off traffic leaving the beach off to the right through the Seafarers property, and traffic coming on the beach goes around there. So it leaves kind of a big infield in the middle, and with a traffic signal, a new traffic signal scheduled at Crescent, a new one at the base of the bridge, and a new one at San Carlos, Old San Carlos and Fifth, which we can function those three traffic signals, coordinate them all together, and we'll keep an eye on everything, and this model seems to make traffic move the best of the three models. So,
Question, so did the trolley stops integrate into this one better as well?
yes. There's trolley stops off to the right, exiting, and a trolley stop.
It's a microphone now, yeah.
We have a trolley stop over in here on this model and one down here and you can have a beach drop-off area there. Now, I'll tell you that FDOT, I'll say this when I get back to the podium, FDOT is working model as well, and they've modified it a little bit. They have this up in here, this just around a little back closer in here, and they've made some changes, and they're going to be back, they're going to be down here and show you their changes in February and March, and I'll get to that next. With the modeling that we just showed you, it gives you an area in the infield there, some kind of landscaping, some kind of beach landscape. And again, FDOT has this back up in here a little bit. They've made some minor changes that you all get a look at, and we'll get to comment on here directly. This gives you a landscape potential for the middle there. You got another. These are just what we put together as potential landscape options. Yes, that's a good point. None of these models that you just saw will in first season peak hour will work. The one that works the best, the other 10 months of the year, again, was the one that we showed you there. I don't want to get you thinking that one's going to work. However, I do want to say that what FDOT's doing, if you remember the PD&E study that they put on to show everybody, they've chosen one, which is what we took and made that model around, and then they've chosen what they call Island Alternative 2. So FDOT's going to come down and build this oval, but it's going to be part of a much bigger job. We're going to start at the Hurricane Bay Bridge, other end of San Carlos Island. We're going to restripe that, such narrow the lanes to create a large, not large, but a pedestrian path on the what would be the west side there. They're going to get rid of the metered signal at Buttonwood and make it meter only when necessary, only in peak hours, and it will operate just like a regular signal the rest of the time. We're going to add a new signal at Main Street. We're going to widen the Matanzas Bridge to the west side and add a bed path across that bridge. We're going to restripe the bridge to 2 lanes on, 1 lane off. We're going to redo all the roadway lighting. Then they're going to build that oval that we just looked at, that everybody agreed on, at the base of the bridge, again with a new signal at Crescent, a new signal there at the base of the bridge, and a new signal at Old San Carlos. That's the county's going to. They offered us to do that as part of one big job. They'll put together for a savings in means there, and then the county's going to fund about $400. I think they've asked us to fund $400,000 towards that.
Andy, with the lights that you talked about on Buttonwood and over the base of the bridge on Main Street, will those also be in coordination with the ones at Crescent at the base of the bridge?
Yes, our TOC, Traffic Operations Center, I think we have about 450, 460 signals that we maintain countywide. We have communication signal, fibercom communication to about 85% of those. I think we'll have it to these as part of the project. So we can operate, our folks can sit at the TOC and they watch traffic real time through the cameras, head live through the fiber feed, and we can adjust the timings to get it just right and everything working as best it can.
Questions for Randy?
I just, Randy, if you could, you have to appreciate, first of all, thank you for being here and thank you for all your work on this project. This all occurred right before an election on the island. We've got 3 new councilors here. We lost one of our major newspapers. We were in the middle of the COVID. I just think a lot of this is news to the people on our island, and it very well may be good news. And so don't take this wrong. I think, is there a way to, particularly what the state has proposed as well, to encapsulate it all in some sort of a proposal or a op-ed or a PowerPoint so the folks on our island can have a better sense as to what's coming or what may be coming, and also what's the timeline that's proposed for this. Again, very appreciative of your efforts, appreciate everyone being here today. I just think there's a little bit of a learning curve that we still need to get across. And again, sounds like a very worthy public good, but help us to better educate our citizenry as well.
As you asked, because I forgot to mention that. They'll have 60% design plans, FDOT, of the whole thing that I just described by late November this year. We'll be able to look at a 60% set of plans, and I'll get them down. If they submit them to us, they should probably submit them both of them. But if they only submit them to us, I'll make sure I get them down to you, and then they're going to have a public hearing on this and a big presentation for you and all your comments in February or March of 2021. So you have plenty of time to take a look at this and make comments.
And I thank you for that. And that being said, what in a perfect world, what would be the overall timeline of these projects in a perfect world?
I think if they get a green light on their public hearing, I think they're supposed to have 100% design later in 2021. As long as it takes them, I don't know what their procurement timing is, maybe 4 or 5 months, and then bid timing, probably have to advertise it for a month, and 4 or 5 months, get a contractor on board. I think they're going to start construction 2022. That's what I've heard.
Very good. Thank you very much.
I can only warn you now, we're all being this together. It'll be about the same time Margaritaville's probably going to build that overpass just before Crescent. Kansas will be under construction. We'll be doing our signal at Crescent. You'll be doing your signal at San Carlos. So if you thought that the work is down and out of your hair, it's going to be back, I think. So
And you'll be retired. And you'll be retired by then.
We are thinking about adopting the orange barrel as our official mascot here on Fort Myers Beach.
We sure appreciate your patience.
Any other questions for Randy? Randy, thanks so much. Appreciate your presentation and your updates. Roger, did you want to add anything to this conversation? Why not? You're here.
Mayor, I think Commissioner Sandelli and Randy did a great job of covering all the issues so far with this project, and just to thank you for your patience on the Estero Boulevard project. We've been working on that for several years now, and we drove it this morning before coming to the meeting, and it's really looking good. Can't wait for it to be finished. All of your constituents would really like for it to be finished as well. But we're, as it turns out, that is, I've been doing this work a long time, the most complicated road project I've ever been involved with. Narrow right away, and not sure what we're going to find once we start digging the place up. On all kinds of pipes, nobody knew exactly where they came from or where they went. But we're getting close now. Still anticipate finishing that project in 2021. So. Your folks have been great partners in that project, so thank you for your patience, and we'll look forward now to this FDOT project to get the bridge widened and this oval completed at the base of the bridge.
While you're here, my friend, and you're talking about bridges, can you give us a quick update on the Big Carlos Pass Bridge, Randy?
We've had a little delay on the Big Carlos Bridge. We wanted to have the public hearing, which is a integral part, necessary step in the PD&E process. We were going to have it in January this year. FDOT canceled all large meetings at that point in time, so we're shooting for Bay Oaks, January 28th of 2021, to have our public hearing. At that point in time, they'll wrap up the final plans, finish the PD&E. It might not start as we hoped right on the tail of this project, but it'll be soon thereafter. So we've lost probably $400,000 or $500,000 in the seagrass study that we did, the manatee study, the dredging. All that has to be redone now from DEP and the South Florida Water Management, unfortunately. But again, we should be on that. I wouldn't think it'd be much later than 2022. I think we should be about the same time. We might have lost 8 months.
Well, it's conceivable that the road project could be done before the bridge project begins.
It was our intent to march right down and start the bridge right there, and we still might make it. I mean, depending on how fast FDOT can pull the PD&E together after the public hearing that'll be here, Bay Oaks, January 28th.
Questions for Randy?
I could just see one more thing while Commissioner Sandelli is here and Roger and Randy. As a new counselor, I just want to say thank you for the Estero Boulevard project. It is spectacular. And I know it's been long. I know it's been a struggle. I know it's complicated. We had a presentation at our last council meeting that discussed the town of Fort Myers Beach implementing a stormwater system that really never existed before in conjunction with this project. Really revolutionary for our island. And I think the construction is right in front of my place right now on the south end of the island, and I couldn't be more thankful because it's really making progress at this point, and it's really night and day. It's a game changer for our island. So I just wanted to thank you all for your efforts and your support on that.
I'd also like to reiterate that because where I live, the construction is done. And before this construction, I mean, my dad was waiting out in the summer once across the road, Estero Boulevard, and got completely soaked by someone driving in the lake that was out there. And I've seen tourists in the middle of the night walking down the middle of Estero because it's the only dry spot. And now when it does rain, I haven't seen any problems at all. So that's greatly appreciated. Another question for you is with the rubble from the bridge, I was just wondering where you are with we'd like to see a reef built, I think in the area would, instead of having that hauled away, and what is the timeline for that, and when can we
If you're referring to the demolition of the Big Carlos Bridge, when we built the new Big Carlos Bridge,
exactly.
When we built the new Matlacha Bridge 4 years ago, we hauled demolished concrete chunks. I forget how far out. Do you remember where that reef is? There's that new reef that we built 12, 13 miles out there, and I hear it's working spectacularly. I hear that there are all kinds of crews have taken over that area, so I'm sure that we'll probably do something the same with the bridge as well. Carlos Bridge as well.
Thank you.
And when I appeared before the commission some time back at one of the public hearings, although we didn't agree on the height of the bridge per se, myself and the commissioners did agree that something should be done for the fishermen. And there was some sort of consensus that they'd look into, I think you remember, Roger, some sort of platform underneath for fishermen. And I don't know how that's working out, but just want to keep that in everybody's mind that we were looking at something like that. Because what we're really doing was we're cutting all these fishermen out of that bridge. That'll be gone forever. So I was hoping to be able to accommodate them in some fashion.
There is an option for a fishing pier. It goes probably, if you imagine the bridge has piers, it goes from pier to pier. It goes one or two piers out from the side. But which side gets it, the Benita side, the Fort Myers Beach side, or for either or both sides, that all can be discussed at the public hearing.
Great. Okay. As long as it's still on the table there, that's what I want. Okay. Anything else for the county folks?
If I may, Roger or Commissioner Sandelli, could you, since you're here, could you touch base maybe a little bit on what Gail was asking about with the arches and where the county may or may not be as far as working with them?
Morning, Dave Harner, Deputy County Manager of Lee County. Yes, we're willing to work with the town and the group. Where we are right now is what we've stated in the past is our parks are built for a specific purpose. It's very difficult to put a large historic monument back on those properties. But again, we're willing to work with the town and the community to look at some kind of solution for that purpose. Right now, we have not come to an agreement, nor have we come to an agreement on what parcel we would use. Again, like I stated earlier, we would be willing to work with you as well as work with the group.
Members of the council, I think everyone has been involved in these conversations for a while now, and coming to successful conclusions has been quite difficult. We think that if the project is ever to take place, it's going to have to be a scaled down model of the original arches. I know there's been a desire expressed for it to be the actual size of the original arches, but that simply isn't possible. So if we can come to some agreement about a scaled down model of the arches, we'll probably be a little closer to having some successful conversations.
Any other questions? Commissioner.
You know, when I mentioned my comments before, how things went from the traffic piece, it was an agreement, between the town. It came to us, we worked together, and we can't find a solution. I think probably the same situation here. Can we get a consensus on what the town wants and is willing to do? And I think we're willing to work with you on whatever that may be. So it's an emotional problem, it's a factual problem, but I don't see why we can't find something that find the same solution for the road.
Thank you. Any final questions for anyone here? Gentlemen, I want to thank you for coming down this morning. Commissioner, Roger, Dave, Randy, thanks for all your information. Good to see you all again, and let's stay in touch. Okay.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks a lot. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. And we've already taken item D out. Does anyone else wish to pull anything out of this agenda? Anything else to discuss? Although I asked that earlier.
I thought Roger might be having more information for us about some alternatives for the fireworks before we approve.
Well, that's why I'm asking the question.
Well, I just assumed he was going to speak.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, were you planning on just if we had local recognitions, do you want us to hold that to the members' comments at the end? I don't normally have one, but I know her parents might be watching.
Why don't you go right ahead with that right now?
I'll do it briefly, but
okay.
I just had one recognition that's only time sensitive because I think she said she was going to have her parents watching this morning. We have a pharmacist on this island, Dr. Allie Kaplan, and she would be here this morning, but she has to work this morning at our local CVS. It's the only pharmacy on the island, and she has her doctorate in pharmacy from the University of Florida. And so she is therefore Dr. Allie Kaplan. She has been at our CVS since graduating from school in 2017, I'm sorry. And she's a unique individual because she's extremely knowledgeable. She's tough. She's really caring, particularly for the seniors on our island who often gather at the CVS. We live nearby the CVS, and we see a lot of the traffic that comes into the CVS. And she always goes out of her way to try to find discounts for seniors, help them with their questions in a very busy environment. And she clearly has a heart for the people on our island. And I'm sure if you do your business, your pharmacy business on our island, you've run into Allie or Dr. Kaplan. And I would just say she deserves our recognition because it's a tough job. Because folks come in, they're expecting certain things to be paid for, certain prices are alarming to certain customers, and she's always working to try to educate, help them find discounts, and she's clearly this is clearly a calling for her, and she did tell me that during season, the CVS on our island, the CVS pharmacy is the third busiest CVS in the state of Florida. And so they've got their hands full because they usually have to train up a new staff, a support staff, just to work for season. And then they leave during the off season. She's got to train up a new staff again. So have patience with Allie when you're in line there at the CVS. I know it's frustrating at times, but you can watch her in action as you're waiting in line. And I just commend her for her service on our island. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. And you can get your free flu shot anytime you want now. I'm just no, Allie's she's been serving up my folks' scripts for years, and she's a great gal and does a great job, and rightfully so to acknowledge her. Okay. Well, I guess what we'll do is we're pulling that item out. Roger, you want to give us an update on the New Year's Eve fireworks? Anything you found out?
Yes, sir. As you know, the agenda was printed prior to the M&P discussion, so that's why it was put on consent. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to the issue. Since Thursday, we were able to You find out a couple of facts for your further consideration of the item. As it Bay Oaks, after consulting with Fort Myers Beach Fire Rescue District, we've concluded that the area is just too small, unfortunately. The next alternative was to look at the potential of a barge, and you could see those additional costs exceeding $25,000. After talking with the sheriff and the fire district in terms of what would be needed to protect encroachment into the safe zone around the barge. Barge has to be a specific type, protect the people who would be on the barge shooting off the fireworks, and it's not a matter of getting someone's 30-foot pontoon boat and using it to light off the fireworks. The last alternative we looked at was if the fireworks company would consider giving us additional time to postpone beyond the previously agreed to December 31st. And they provide us with an estimate of just over $4,000 for the cost of storing the equipment to that revised delayed date. So your options, to summarize, would be to basically double the budget if you wanted to go with the barge concept. To go forward on December 31st as tentatively contemplated, or delay indefinitely for a cost of just over $4,000, less than $5,000.
Delay is for an indefinite, somewhat indefinite delay?
I don't have in my notes from them the time frame of the delay, but I would assume it would get us to the following July 4th, at least.
Okay, thank you. Council members, anybody want to comment? Ask a question?
I guess I will.
Right ahead.
Based on all the stuff that Roger has said, I don't think doubling the budget is a viable thing. Bay Oaks is obviously out storing it. I'm trying to keep an open mind on this and looking at what other places are doing and what sports teams are doing, and they're allowing fans back into the stadium. You're starting to see outdoor concerts come back around. I think people are educated enough now that they know what they're supposed to do and what they're not supposed to do. I think that people are ready for 2020 to be over with. I think that's an understatement. I'd be in favor of moving forward with going on with the fireworks.
I think I'm kind of on the other side of that. I think that we have seen events like the motorcycle rally in Sturgis lead to outbreaks. I think as much as I would like to see this outbreak over, I think the only way it's really going to be over is if we keep it contained. And I just don't think that we are where we need to be to have a bunch of people being in a tight spot downtown. My feeling is that I think the most prudent thing to do is just be to it was a mistake and eat the deposit.
Well, we don't necessarily have to eat it because they're willing to extend it next year. Councilman, do you have comments?
Yeah, this is an outdoor event, and because of all the various educational efforts that have occurred over the last few months, I think people can be trusted to approach this in a safe manner. So I would be comfortable going forward as well. I don't want to have a big fight about it, but I do think just if you're polling the council, I would be supportive.
Well, I have to say I'm truly disappointed that we don't have an option. I'm always in favor of taking baby steps, which is why I had asked Roger to look into some option we could do this maybe in a more safe way, because I do want to take baby steps and move forward. But what I'm hearing is that there isn't an option for baby steps in this scenario. As far as everybody saying people know how to behave, that hasn't been my experience. I've been weekly going out and buying food for a neighbor, and I call ahead and ask if masks are being worn. I get to the restaurant, staff is not wearing masks about 50% of the time when I go out. I don't go back to those establishments. I'm not finding that people are knowing how to behave. When I went to CVS, I've been going to CVS throughout this. It's the one place I've been going into. The first several months, I was seeing masks. I went to CVS last week. Me, the staff, and one other customer was wearing a mask. The rest of the people in CVS were maskless. So I'm not finding, people are getting lax. They're not listening to safety measures. So I guess at this point, I would be in favor of saying, we'll pay the additional costs necessary to extend.
Well, I agree with the Vice Mayor, of course. When you say people know what to do, we think they know what to do. We'd like to think that they know what to do. All one has to do is look the highest office in the land, a super spreader in the Rose Garden, for God's sakes. People do not know what to do, or they just don't care. They just don't care. So, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm going to do what I think is best for our people down here on the beach to keep them safe and healthy. And that's to keep going in the direction that we're going. And by all indications, that what we're being told is that this is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. A lot worse. I mean, they're predicting this winter in places can be catastrophic. And up north, and if it's going on up north, guess where they're going to come to get away from it? They're going to come down to Florida. So we're going to be facing the same thing all over again. So this is not the time to let down our guard. As far as the people in these restaurants, I'm sorry to hear that, Vice Mayor. I'm really sorry to hear that. And we haven't been enforcing this ordinance. We haven't levied any fines. Now I've been criticized for making statements about that. You know what? Maybe it's time to start going into these establishments and seeing whether the ordinances are being followed. Maybe it's time. Because you know what? If they're not going to follow the law and the disease can start spreading again, well, then where are we then? Where are we then? So I was hoping also that there could have been another alternative for the fireworks, spreading them out. And frankly, if it wasn't double, if it was half again as much to put them on the barge, I'd say put them out on the barge. Let's shoot the darn fireworks off and have a great time. Welcome in the new year, and spread people up and down the island. And if that can be negotiated to a number like that, I'd say let's do it. Let's do it. But I'm not in favor of cramming people in together. Not when we're trying to fight this disease and this pandemic. It's not worth the risk. We've done well at this point, and I'm also disappointed to hear about CVS. CVS and Publix, they've been the standard bearers during this whole pandemic as far as the enforcement of the masks and so forth. To hear people coming in now, and it's exploding again on the East Coast. And the mayor of Miami Beach has been on TV the past couple of days. People, the parties are going wild on Miami Beach. And you know what he says? The mayor says, well, we can't enforce it because the governor says that we can't fine these people for this. So the disease now is spreading rampant again over there. Where do they come after Miami Beach closes down? They come over here back to us on the West Coast. Well or sick. And that's what we're trying to avoid. That's what we're trying to keep our people healthy on Fort Myers Beach. And not just our people, our citizens, but also our guests, our visitors. We're trying to assure them that they're going to be safe when they come down here to visit us. If we say, you know, what the hell, we'll just open it up and have a great big party like Miami Beach, do you think people are going to come down here? Do you think the summer that you had this summer, if that's the way it's advertised? I don't think so. I don't think so. So that's my 2 cents on the matter. But
If you're finished, Mr. Murphy?
yes, I am. Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we pay the additional costs necessary to extend the contract under the terms that Mr. Hernstadt indicated, an amount under $4,000.
It's just over 4,000.
Just over 4,000. Excuse me.
I'd like to amend that motion to give Roger the opportunity to take one more crack at the cost of that barge out there and to see if that can be lowered down. And if not, then go right ahead and store at the aforementioned amount.
I'll accept the amendment.
Do you want to state an amount that at that or less, Mr. Mayor, with the barge option?
Is there any consensus here about an amount that would be satisfactory to the council?
I could support that motion if we could go a little higher on the amount, and I would support that, Mr. Mayor. Get that barge.
A little higher, yes, but I think what Roger's asking for is an amount, not to exceed amount. We're willing to pay in addition to have that out there.
Well, I think you indicated half would have been acceptable to you.
It would be to me.
Half the cost of the fireworks. That would be 12,500. I think you
Fireworks
have
are
the right numbers.
20,000, right? And then
We're actually 27.
We go 15?
Was there a question about the barge itself, Roger? I mean, there is a suitable type of barge that they can.
It could be accomplished.
Yes, but at what?
It's just we're seeing costs actually in excess of $25,000 just for the barge itself, not including the fireworks show and all the in-kind activities of the staff and permitting. So I don't believe that number is negotiable, but we can try if you all want to set a ceiling.
Let me ask you something while we're talking. What are all the other municipalities doing? Is anyone else shooting off fireworks for New Year's? Are you aware of?
You know, my sense is that a lot of people are in half in two camps. Fortunately, mirroring, I think, what the national politics, unfortunately. Half the people think this is a serious issue and needs to be dealt with collectively to minimize the impacts. And there's roughly 50% who think that they want to go about their day-to-day lives as they knew them to be in early 2020. So I think that a lot of the elected officials are facing these hard decisions. And all I could guidance is that my suggestion to you is to err on the side of caution. The last thing we want is to be having a meeting like we had to have,
That's right.
7 months ago about deciding on whether or not we have to close our public facilities and close our recreational areas and things like that. We're finally getting them open. We've solicited everyone's cooperation to help us to stay open. And this might just be one of the further sacrifices that we have to ask people to endure to help us stay open.
I do think, and a comment is that a lot of other municipalities around us are not in our situation. We have a fully developed island without a lot of open space, where maybe someplace like Bonita or Cape Coral can have a large area where they can put a fireworks display and spread people out. We don't have that ability.
I'll just comment as to my last comments that I want the businesses to stay open on Fort Myers Beach. I want them to stay open. I want you guys to stay open. I want you to be safe. I want you to be a safe place for everyone to come to. And that's not just the restaurants, it's everybody, And that's the goal. I mean, if everybody can mask up and socially distance and everything, we can stay open. It's been proven to work around the country that if people do play by the rules and do what's best, that we can stay open. We can stay open. And I'm not looking to close anything either. Don't misconstrue what I'm saying here. But the best way to ensure that is to stay healthy, and that's by wearing the mask, socially distancing, washing your hands, and so forth. Okay, so the motion is to, Vice Mayor, is to, I amended it to get the see if the town manager can if he can bring the cost of the bid of the barge down by 50%. If not, then we would store the equipment and wait for a better day. It's been moved. It's been seconded by myself. Further discussion.
One thing is that the cost for delaying. I would like to know how long we're paying to delay that for.
Well, the manager answered that by at least until the 4th of July.
He said it wasn't in his notes, though.
Okay.
We'll that clarified. I'm pretty sure that that's the next natural date that we would be. At least one person might like to shoot more for Patrick's Day, but probably July 4th is the next natural date.
A lot of green in the fireworks there.
I would like, if it's still open, I would like to see at least for, a year would be better just for this.
Yeah, I think there's a cost, I think there's a cost tied to the delay. So I believe it's that's a 6-month delay, but if it winds up to be a year delay, all the better.
Point of clarification, Mr. Mayor. So the mayor's proposal with respect to additional funds being expended for the barge, what number does that actually work out to be? Is it?
I would just pick a number like $15,000 or something like that you're comfortable with, and that way you're sending a message to them as well as I to what your tolerance is.
Is that number consistent with what you were thinking?
Oh, it was 50%. I said 50% of what it was, but
12.5 based on the number I have for the barge cost itself.
Okay, so we could cap it at 15. I guess that sounds like a nice round number.
I'm comfortable with that. I think it's a worthy effort, and again, if certainly the town could donate its time in kind, obviously, to help reduce that cost. Second of all, I would also just ask my colleagues to keep an open mind about not necessarily waiting all the way till the 4th of July. If we get a vaccine in November, which is passed by Pfizer, if there's additional progress that's made, this was discussed originally on the 4th of July, which I thought was really clever on everybody's part here, was that to find a weekend, whether it be St. Patty's Day or whether it be a festival, whether it's the shrimp parade, shrimp festival, or maybe even an off weekend where things are a little quieter here and utilize those fireworks for that weekend, again, spur additional economic stimulus to the island, because 4th of July is always going to be busy and we're going to probably have fireworks again. And so take those dollars and have fireworks on a weekend that wouldn't normally be busy, particularly if my colleagues feel it's safe at that point. I think it would be wise from just a stimulus standpoint and helping get folks down here when they wouldn't otherwise might be here in such numbers. So,
thank you.
I just, for the record, I do agree that, coming up with the marquee date is good, but I think the 4th of July, we're going to have people here anyway, especially if they're closing down in Miami. We had a neighbor come down who has a rental house down here, and they were amazed how busy the beach was, how busy it was yesterday. And if we could get more of an extension, the other idea is going back to this Island Hopper Festival in September, which is really intentionally put on an off time. The businesses need the business. So that's one of my strategies too, is if we can move this into a slower time of year, I think that'd be more beneficial for the business.
And I'm not opposed to doing both, having 4th of July fireworks next year and then finding that off weekend or that festival to further encourage growth.
Okay. one final comment before I call the question. I was made aware from the Grand Poobah and the originators of the Polar Bear Club that their polar bear outing will be canceled this year as well on the 1st of January. That's, as you all know, that's morphed over the years into quite a big celebration that day. So that's canceled. Okay, so it was moved and seconded. It was discussed. Any objection to the motion? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next item is the consent agenda. We've gone over the fireworks. We've pulled item D. Is there a motion to approve the balance of the consent agenda? Items B, Newton Beach Cottage restoration repairs. Item C, IT technical support services with Vallejo Networks.
I move to approve items B and C of the consent agenda, and special thanks to Allison for all her work on the Newton Beach Cottage restoration repairs. That looks like quite the project, and can't wait to see it completed.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, the next item is the administrative agenda. We pulled item D from the consent agenda, so why don't we take care of that first, which is the community development professional services. Roger?
So these are these are three companies who we utilize as an extension of our staff. Item 1 is for our planning services. Item 2 is for our building services, and item 3 is for environmental services.
Item 3 is for environmental services?
Yes, ma'am, that's Chad Schutz.
Oh, I thought you said that was item 1.
Item 1 is for, I believe, excuse me, did I say it wrong? No, I got it right. Item 1 is for Jason Green and Kelly. Item 2 is for building services, which is Jack McStravick as our building official, and item 3 is for Chad Schutz. The numbering does not follow the paragraphs in the background.
My question was, it seemed that, I'm looking at page 77, we were paying an hourly rate to a planner of $78 after the multiplier is applied. And then when I at page 82, a separate contract, we're paying a plans examiner $85 an hour. So it seemed like we're treating two people who do the same thing, if I'm correct. Not in, now maybe one person has more qualifications, but it's not clear from this that they do.
Right. So plans examiner is a license is required by the state to do that work, as well as being an inspector and a building official. They require licenses. This company does these services for other municipalities, and this is what they consistently charge as their menu of services, if you will. So we're paying commensurate with our counterparts. With regard to the planner, we have two rates. One's for a less experienced planner and one for a more experienced planner. So we're able to deal the work based on the complexity to the best person to do that work on behalf of the town. And of course, as you all know, many of the planning and zoning items, potentially can result in court cases. So we're careful about those.
Well, our planner, who is being paid $78 an hour, does not have a license that the plans examiner has?
That's correct. They have a degree in planning, but they don't have a license. It's not required to be a planner.
And
senior planner does have a certification.
so Jack McStravick is he then he is above Jason Green?
They're two separate disciplines.
Two separate
Disciplines.
Okay.
One is planning and zoning, that's a silo, and then we have building services, that's a silo.
Okay.
Plans, a set of plans moves between the two silos, but the Jason Green is your planning and zoning expert who gives you advice on planning and zoning matters. Filtered to a piece of property, you've seen it in front of the LPA and town council. Building officials responsible for making sure that the structures that are remodeled or are built in compliance with the South Florida Building Code. There are very special statutory requirements of that position, and it's highly responsible. And I will say, and I think you all can remember because it wasn't that long ago, the hard work of both of those folks have contributed to our ability to positively impact our insurance rates. What our property owners pay here on Florida.
Again, I don't want you to think I'm being critical of any of this. I'm just trying to understand it, because the one contract is for 3 people is more than double the contract that there is for 2 people, and they're all professional people with extensive training. So it seemed like the $325,000 contract was a lot of money compared to the other contract.
Right. Well, the $325,000 again is in anticipation of how many building permits, what type of building permits we will be getting. We're very hopeful that we will have a big redevelopment project on the north end of the island starting soon. Therefore, our work with that project will be time consuming, and in essence, that's why that expense is over. The planning and zoning element of that project is basically done.
None of these contracts are the contract that covers the professionals that we're going to have doing the overall look at our LDC.
That's correct.
That's completely separate from all of these 3.
That's a separate company, and that was recommended for a variety of reasons. Mostly fresh eyes, but also we didn't want to, if Kelly and Jason were doing that, then all their day-to-day work would be in conflict with that, and
Understood.
Be delayed.
Again,
so those are the 2 primary reasons why we went with the third company.
Right, and I like that, and I'm not being critical of it. I just wanted to be
just for
clear.
further education for the public. The other thing was we wanted a company that did this for other beach communities and understands nuances of trying to do redevelopment of 25, 30-year-old beach cottages and how that works. So all those reasons we went with this.
Thank you.
Okay.
I feel comfortable now. I'm willing to move the item, but I didn't want to jump ahead in case anybody else had a question about this section.
Any other questions? Right ahead.
I'll move to approve the 3 supplemental task authorizations contained in Section D.
Second that. Any further discussion? Objection? The motion passes unanimously. The next item is item A on the administrative agenda, which is the Times Square, Bay Oaks, and Bayside Park update. Presentation by DRMP, Inc. of the design status, Times Square, Bay Oaks, and Bayside Park. Does anybody want to take a 5-minute break before we commence with this? You want to keep going? Keep going. Go ahead.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Paul Benvey. Again, I'm the project manager for DRMP for these 3 suites of projects here. We'll start with Times Square. I can't tell you how many times I've been here talking to you guys, but we've got to 60% plans. We had a submittal meeting with staff, and this is just a high-level look at it. Going.
My clicker at home.
So we'll turn it off. So closer look here, some aerials. This was the original concept plan that we came up with. Man, it's been about a year now. Got the shade structures, the shade sails. We've got the landscaping, hardscaping. And, we'll talk a little bit about this area down here with the parking coming off of Estero. This is we went from an artist rendering now to some graphical CG renderings. This is what the stage area might look like. You've got Dairy Queen here on the right, and then behind there you got Palaka. There's another aerial view. The pier in the background. The seat walls, we've got the hardscape shown in here. While we're talking about the hardscape, absolutely, we are going to make the drainage down here much better. So if you can see along the tree grates here on either side of these two boulevards, you're going to have trench drains. We're going to take all the water in from both sides. And they'll run out. We're oversizing the pipes and we're pushing it out to down to Estero.
And also, just to clarify, I think you mentioned before that these louvers over the seating areas actually close.
Yes, if that's what we end up purchasing, that's what we will do.
So that's an option at this point.
Option. So yeah, I think it was the way we presented it was that they do articulate so that you can pull shade in. So as the sun's overhead, they're flat. As the sun sets, they kind of go with the sun so that it always creates shade underneath. And then in the event of a rainstorm, they can close. Alternatively, they could just be solid open on budget. I don't think it's going to be an issue. We've priced this thing out with the articulating louvers, so I would guess the direction we're moving. But at the end of the day, it's what the bids come in at and budget will allow.
You have control of that, the individual business owner, or would the town be in charge of opening and closing all that?
That would be for you, yeah. You guys would need to decide that. I'm not saying that you guys need to have that capability. You could let the have control of that. Obviously, that's going to be outside of what we're working with.
Paul, I think what's clear is that one button turns them all closed or all open.
Right. Yeah, they're all individual.
There'll be sections, and one section could be open and one section could be closed.
Sure, it could be wired. Each individual store could have their own button to.
They can be,
put it up and down.
absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
So this was, again, some of the original pictures we've got. We'll zoom in here. This is the dock area looks like right now, the pier approach in the background. Again, this is before the new approach was built. Then we moved to this artist rendering here, what it might look like, and then that's more of a computer graphic. So what I'm saying here is progress we've made thus far is got actual three-dimensional shade structures, shade sails. The stage is all but final design, ready for construction. And we've actually looked to make sure that all these columns line up with those businesses, so you have good lines of sight coming out. We're not putting columns directly in front of your doors. We want to make sure there's good ingress and egress. Again, we talked about the safety of this area going back about a year now. These are 20-foot wide aisles between the trees so we can get fire trucks down in the event of emergency. And we'll have removable bollards or collapsible bollards at the ends to allow emergency vehicles to come in, but also to restrict traffic, pedestrian aisles. This is another view here for scale. There's the FMB sculpture, if you will. It's a FMB logo there. Another picture that shows that a little later in here. And this is what it looks like now. That was the artist rendering. This is where we're at with our model. The seat wall that we discussed, if you recall, we put it at varying heights so we can accommodate all people of all sizes, abilities, and they're also spaced out so that you can't really lay down on them. Elevation changes. Things to look at here: the lighting. That's definitely a concern. So these heads have multiple color temperatures. So outside of turtle season, they'll be brighter and whiter. And during turtle season, they'll be that amber color. And those can be also on a timer schedule over seasons. They don't have to, you don't have to go out and change a bulb. There's just a different LED panel that is on and off.
On this shot here, this is just a question. I don't claim to be an architect by any sense of the word, but where the main sail, the FMB sail is, the base of that is square, the stage is round. Seems odd. It just doesn't. Is there a reason why that's square and not circular to match the stage?
I'm not an architect either. I'm on the engineering side. We design around what the architect wants. I can definitely throw that out there as an opportunity to change that. To tie in also to your question, the black band, the crow's nest look there at the bottom of the sails, that's round, and that would have the time on it. I think we talked about the time. We talked about having different messages, maybe Happy New Year, Happy St. Patrick's Day, etc. So that's a variable message board that you can put some different messages onto. Also the square footage of the leasable space remains the same. It's the same amount of tables in there that you had before. There shouldn't be an issue there. It's just now these aid sales are more permanent. You're not dealing with fellas in and out, and they all will look consistent across the whole. Again, for scale, there's the FMB logo at the new approach to the beach. One thing we've done too is you're out there right now. You see there's a big slope coming off the pier and going down towards, like, say, Palaka or down past in front of Dairy Queen. Actually elevating that up a little higher than it exists now, maybe 8 or 12 inches. That way we can get that view back. I'm sure you guys have seen the view has been diminished with the handrails that come in from that new approach. So we're trying to elevate that ground up, and then what that gives us is then more ability to slope down into the drainage. So we're going to get more positive drainage out of this, and we're also going to increase the
If you could just stay there real quick, that FMB structure, that's an optional structure at this point, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Because does it impair the view of the ocean to some extent, or is it?
Well, I think we have another view here. So that's this was kind of the question we talked about earlier. Does that stage? It certainly adds something to the. It adds something, but you can see through it. There's the FMB logo. This shot is taken from about 5.5 feet tall, looking out over the horizon there. So is it obstructed more or less than the existing approach that's out there now?
I understand the stage, but that I love public art, and what we ought to have more public art. But that FMB thing seems odd to be blocking that beautiful ocean view. Again, I'm not trying to be. I'm nitpicking the things. Overall, I love your project here, but I just that seems odd place to have something that would potentially block the view of the ocean, which just can't be matched.
The previous council was suggesting that they'd like to see some selfie spots. And that's really what this is. This is more of a spot where you might take a picture at sunset showing the FMB, or as the sun goes down or it's down, it's uplit, and you can take a picture in front of it that shows the FMB logo. It can be absolutely moved.
You just can't beat that ocean view, though. There's nothing that could touch it. But just a food for thought.
The other thing is we can look at having it where it's not there all the time. So it could be there and sometimes and not there all the time. So we could make it so it could be put in and taken out. So it's not always there also.
Selfie Saturday.
So, you want to preserve the view and make it an attraction versus you can go 2 o'clock in the morning and take your picture.
Encouraging.
Here we are looking maybe halfway down from the street, down Old San Carlos. That's what it might look like at night.
Is that showing? Looks like there's lights inside the band.
They have an LED strip inside.
That goes around.
Yep.
Now, will the toe kick lighting along the seat wall there and all the uplights, will those also be color changeable like the overhead lights that you talked about earlier?
They can. If they present an issue, but from what I understand, because they're uplights, not a direct source, they don't need to change. If it's a direct source, the turtles get confused and think it's the moon. Whereas if it's a splash of light, an indirect light, diffuse light, then it's not an issue.
It almost looks like that circular light around the stage is being used to illuminate the stage. I just could see a potential problem with it causing an issue with turtles.
Right.
And
yeah. So
it could change color temperature.
Those can change, yes.
I do think that any kind of glow, any kind of white light glow can disorient the turtles.
Any low. Okay.
Because it just looks like, I mean, the moon is not always really visible when they hatch. Sometimes it's behind clouds or something of a sort.
I do like the trees, and we do have to take public safety into consideration. You know, when you're talking about the color temperature of these lights, it looks nice and pretty when it's warm, but it's visible for someone to trip.
And I would think, you know, conversely with the dining area, I know when you go out sometimes and dine at night, that you don't often have bright white lights. I mean, fluorescent lights are not sought after in dining areas, so a warmer light is usually what people put in restaurants anyway.
This is an odd question. It may be for Roger, or maybe it's for us, but we have all these uniform tables here. Is it part of the plan to provide tables for the businesses, or will they still have their own choice of table, or will that be something the town would provide and then they would maintain, or what's the thought on that? Has anybody thought through that? Because everybody seems to have different types of tables.
Well, our thought was that we would like to try to gain some consistency, but that's not really integral to the design, you know, of the project itself. It could be, the decision at the end of the day is each business wants their own tables, and the council has no objection that way, or if the council wants.
That would be a good conversation. Yeah, that would be a good conversation.
My point is, it's not an integral part of the design.
But it does potentially look nice. But it seems like that's something we'd want to do in concert with the business owners, right?
Right. So the council were inclined to have consistent type of tables throughout the area, as shown in the picture. Then we would price out the tables and perhaps talk to them about whether or not wanted them to buy them. You know, we'd group price them and see if they wanted to buy them. Or, as I said, that's a conversation we have plenty of time to have.
Any questions for Paul about this?
I just want to mention one other thing. And Paul, I remember in our conversation, we wanted to be careful about not having the back of the stage too solid for the purposes of getting a security concern back there. But we do believe that the stage is large enough that if there were a downpour, the equipment could be moved to the center and be well protected from the rain.
Part of the structure in the back of that stage is a baffle for.
Well, it's to hide certain things, but we've made it as close as we feel we can for safety reasons.
Like musical equipment, that kind of things.
Well, like, you know, obviously there is power and other things that would have to support the stage. That'll be on that back panel.
Another, that's, you know, the trees you have drawn in here. Now, I understand that, especially, particularly along the Estero treeway there's really not a lot of room to put a broad tree. Right? But the other part, the part that comes off of Old San Carlos, it seems like on one side we could come up with more broad shade trees, more marquee trees instead of the palms. Oaks or sea grapes or something.
Well, I don't know that we necessarily want to deal with leaves, but we could consider other species if you'd like us to do that.
Yeah, we had a conversation before about the risks of some of the palms and their damaging the roof and to maintain them. And
yeah, I think at least I recall a conversation we had, and while fronds, I think we're being careful with the species that, in and of themselves, they don't create a significant danger of falling and damaging either other parts of the square or people, and of course, public property. And as it stands right now, the town will be maintaining it there and having those problems on a regular basis.
We do at this moment, right? They're all coconut palms that are trimmed.
Those are the two problem palms. Coconuts, you've got missiles, and royals drop those massive fronds when they finally fall. There are a lot of other palms. And Councilman, there are better shade trees, but I don't, in my opinion, for that area, you don't want to get into those big leafy trees because they're a maintenance nightmare. I don't think the business guys down there would want that constant leaves. They're constantly shedding. And they're a mess. I think there's better areas for those, but I think there are lots of other palms that we could look into. I mean, those canary date palms, they're expensive, but they're beautiful. They're beautiful palms, and the queen palm is a beautiful palm and would accomplish the same goal here. So there are a lot of other choices, but I'll leave that to the landscape professionals.
I will too.
Paul, while you're on this slide and looking at those louvers, say they can open and they can close. When they close, I don't see any kind of drainage system. All that water just going to cascade over one side?
No, it's an internal gutter system.
There is, okay.
Nice. And they actually tie into the trench drain.
Okay.
Nice. Any more questions on the Times Square element here?
I had a constituent inquire about this. Is there any chance to save the clock, put it in a less prominent spot in the Times Square area for those who really revere the clock? Is there a place that could sort of so it's there, someplace so people want to still see that as part of this experience?
Yeah, and I think this is where it goes from one council to another. I believe in the last council has to get rid of it completely. Seems more like a political football that one that I don't want to pick up.
I'm not trying to put you in the middle of it. Yeah, I mean, but structurally, is it still in good shape? Could it?
No.
So it's
the current clock can't be retained, so we could try to find something similar to replace it with.
Okay, so the current clock can't be restored. Okay, I did not know that. Okay, all right.
Living on borrowed time.
Thank you. Somebody asked me that. So
One if by land, two if by sea. Maybe it could be part of the reef. Okay, Paul, are you done with the?
Yeah, I'm good with
Square?
it if you guys are good. So that's just the update there.
Yeah, let's just be clear. So later in your agenda, we have an item to move to the next step. The thing that we didn't talk about was the parking situation that one of the gentlemen brought up. So let's just address that now.
Sure. Actually, put that back up. Sorry, guys. Back to Times Square. So real quick, I'll just talk about it. So our original renders, artist rendering showed pulling that out. We're providing parking to our driveway through to the parking spaces to the south there.
That mic.
There we go.
It's on.
Okay, so here to show. Right now you have the trolley stop here, and vehicles come in and out through here. You've got vehicles coming in this parking lot here, kind of haphazardly in and out, and then you've got 3 spaces here. Original concept was to try to pull all of this out of here and make this more of a pedestrian. We're going with that until we could. And we actually heard last week that we're going to be addressing that in the next stage. The idea was right here has lots of parking area, and we want to add spots here It's you're backing out onto Arrow, so we believe that really just comes down to pedestrian area, or do we want to dedicate with lead plan to this trolley stop out into this area here? We know eventually they're down Arrow. Early we'd put it in here, and then still provide a drive lot down here. So that was that question.
Yeah, I think the point is that, from a design standpoint, we think that's a better design, but from a practical standpoint, if the businesses want it to continue the way it is, we'll work around that.
While we're on this subject, Roger, could you take a second? I think you touched on this last week when you talked about some of the stormwater infrastructure repairs that still need to be done in Times Square. Could you talk about a timeline as to when this will be done, and will it be done in conjunction with the infrastructure repairs? And if so, how will all that timeline out for people that are watching all this?
Well, it really depends a lot on whether the council say that you're happy with the progress to date and want us to continue. If that's the case, we're going to try to do the drainage infrastructure work in an off season or the slow season slowest possible season for the businesses. Jump in there and try to get it done in a matter of 5 weeks or so. And then the tie-ins, which will be the slot drain that Paul was talking about, that goes with that'll be done as part of the other at-grade improvements. But we'll be setting that up during sort of that. So it'll be like a mini first project and the second main project.
So there's no synergy to do them together. You can't do them at the same time, or does that not make
sense?
Well,
we can. What we're really going to try to do is work with the businesses to try to minimize to the greatest extent possible their inconvenience. So typically when you do a project like this, you just do all the drainage at once, and then you would come in and do the water lines but we're going to try to section it so that if we're working in front of business A, hopefully we're not too badly adversely affecting business B. So it's not the most efficient type of construction, but it's the one to try to keep business continuity at the highest possible level that we can. So we're sacrificing construction efficiency for business continuity because these are ongoing businesses. You've all talked about the fact that they've had several unexpected hits over these last couple of years. We want to do everything we can while this will be a major facelift of this area, to try to minimize the business interruption to the greatest extent possible.
And in a perfect world, you would look at doing all of this next off season?
Well, we're going to I've talked to John about in the past before the COVID. Before we've had some delays with this in terms of just the vetting process, but he perceives his slowest time of the year. I think he well knows his colleagues out there in terms of what they believe the slowest time of the year is. So we're working around that time period. So we may sit idle waiting for that time to come rather than starting on the first available date because it would conflict necessarily with a busier period.
You're thinking next year at some point?
Yes.
Okay. And it would be done theoretically by the end of next year?
No, it would probably be 2 years only because of while we can't get it done and can't get the at-grade stuff done in the slowest part of the year, we'll try to use the shoulders of the slowest part of the year to get it done. So we'll do the hard infrastructure stuff 1 year, and we'd almost wait a year or 8 months or 9 months and then start the other part of it.
This means it would look like a construction site for the.
No, we put down temporary storage, for that ensuing period. And yeah, it won't be the pavers, but it'd be temporary surface, be walkable. And we would come back and do the final at-grade improvements.
In a perfect world, how long would it take if you could do it from start to finish without any interruption?
When you say 8 months, you mean both the infrastructure needs and the project you're talking about today? Okay.
I was more talking about the infrastructure. Just to do the infrastructure part of it, if you were to do it all at one time, how long would it take?
Well, I'm not, I was asked a question, and we haven't really talked about that in detail, so you're not contradicting me in the sense that I disagree with you. Just saying that visual-wise, I want to be very sensitive to business continuity issues and talk to the businesses about that, whether they'd rather just bite the bullet and get it over with, or they feel that they can't basically be impacted for 4 months straight again. Unless we can work out the timing, that it's a 4-month period year one, and 4-month period year two. But I think we need more information and to really assess that, and probably have a better idea what those alternatives would be when we have closer to 90% plan.
There's a couple things too. There's a LAP agreement we're trying to get that could go into that, where timing of when that comes in, that may adjust the starting point of this thing. But you also could break, like I said, instead of trying to get all of it done in 8 months, maybe you take one half down one's off season, and then you do the other half on the other off season. You could still get it done in 8 months, but it might be 4 months and 4 months over a period of 2 years. There's lots of different ways to break it up. We've got, I know just from being in the plans and designing this thing out, where all of our utilities go, because that's really where you're going to start looking at good breaking points. You don't want to have half of a utility line put in that you have to then reopen up and take out. Drainage goes directly, basically from Palaca to the west. Or to the east, and then also to the north. There's pretty good break points right inside there, and we could figure out a nice spot to do it, to break it up if we needed to.
Just like to add one comment here to close this up. This is the second major project for Times Square. The first one was closing the square itself. John was here, I was here for that, and Greek restaurant was there. The people on the pier were there. Doug had his restaurant in the back, was there, and so forth. And we made it through. We made it through. It wasn't easy, but the rewards were there at the end. It was a tough project, but the benefits far outweighed the inconveniences that were incurred. And I have the same feeling about this project, that given the cooperation between the parties and so forth, we can get through this, and it's going to be a tremendous benefit, not only for the people of the town and the businesses, but all the visitors that are going to come and enjoy this. So it's going to be fantastic. I don't like to overuse that word, but it will be great, and we appreciate your efforts. And now please move on to.
Actually, I had
sorry.
a comment. And I addressed this to the businesses. We took a lot of flack from you in public comment today. I am always in favor of talking to the businesses. The thing I'd like to say back to you is I was present at the last workshop when the businesses were present, and None of you agreed about anything. So coming in and criticizing us that, you're not being involved in the project, I would urge you to get together and talk amongst yourselves and come to us with a more united set of suggestions. Because last time when I left that meeting, I completely felt that we couldn't please you because no one agreed with anyone else. So that's just my suggestion back to you all. I want to involve you in the project, but if you all disagree, it's not helpful.
All due respect.
Sorry, you can't speak right now. You got your chance to speak, and that was my chance to
Mayor,
speak.
one last thing before we move on to the next site, and that is, as the county manager alluded to when the work was done in the Times Square area for Ontario Boulevard, the underground stuff is our greatest risk because, the least unforeseen conditions is probably our greatest fear, that what we think we have there and what we actually have there, and whether we have to make field changes and things like that when we encounter something that wasn't on the as-built or whatever. So we're going to be very careful about that period of time so that we don't have a situation where we encounter something and the project has to sit on hold for 4 weeks while we're figuring out what to do. We're going to be extremely careful about that to the greatest extent possible, because the above ground stuff is straightforward stuff. We'll get delayed by rain or something like that, or part of a hurricane, but that'll go smoothly. It's the underground stuff that I'm concerned about.
I think there should be better as-built available in this project than there were before for the last project. I think between the as-built that we have and consultation with John and some of the other old timers down there and business people, that we'll be able to locate everything down there. So,
I do agree that the idea of splitting up into 2 seasons, though, it sounds like it's really cumbersome, and it's a kind of a longer-term pain for the businesses down there. The idea that unintended consequences, we said in a perfect world, and we know there's no such place. So that, if you have a 4-month scheduled event, and you have a 6-month window, at least it gives you that chance that if it does bump, it doesn't bump you into a season. The other thing is, one more point I'd like to make is, the sail monumental feature. Has that gone through engineering to see what it will take to, carry winds?
Not at 60%. We have a structural engineer on board that is looking at the foundations for all of the improvements that are out there. I don't see that being something that's impossible to do. And our budgetary numbers, we put a number on there that we thought would be on the high end of what it might cost.
Okay. Paul, you want to continue on to Bay Oaks?
Bay Oaks is a fun one. I love Bay Oaks. It's got lots of different agencies involved, lots of different municipalities involved. We got every single logo we could here. Probably should have put the city of Naples on here. Sure, the Army Corps. So this is the current. This is the original plan that we came up with. We're going to show how we kind of walk through some things here. We have a couple of buildings that were looked at. One's a community-oriented building, and then also an athletic building, maybe a gymnasium, replacing the old recreation center. Some of the key things here also were the amphitheater, the multi-use field, the trail, the sharing of the property with the school, the outdoor classroom, and things like that. So also there's an entrance off of Estero. So this was the second concept that we came up with. Real quick, I just want to clarify too, we're in preliminary plans still. We presented our 30% concept plans to staff at the end of. So these are not at all hard and fast. Everything's changeable still, and we're looking to go to the next after this. So this is what we're looking at here. We looked at moving the small baseball field over. There was some conversation about that, and then we looked at pricing on this thing. and this thing was way out of budget, if you recall from our last meeting. So what we did here, work with town staff to make a modification. We took away the other two buildings, we combined them into one. So instead of having an athletic building now and a community building now, we're basically keeping the athletic building and the existing recreation center, and we're having the community building and the amphitheater combined as one for construction and budget efficiencies. We have a roundabout in the middle to try and slow traffic down. We are still looking at having the entrance only off of Estero, and then also the and egress off of. And this is where we're at from a CG rendering for this building.
What's the square footage of that building?
14,000 square feet.
Will there be anything on the first level?
Yes, there's a concession area and restrooms.
Is there any storage for the Little League? They've got a lot of storage facilities now. Is any of that built into this building?
What we have existing stays.
Oh, the existing?
Yeah, for this phase.
Really? So if you could go back and point where that would be?
Yeah, so the existing Little League is back. Wait, are you talking about the storage for the? Yeah, it's underneath the back.
You're trying to say the existing concession stand and storage that they're using is staying?
Yes. That's all staying down there in the bottom. On this one, there is room for concessions underneath and bathrooms. I guess I should have brought the floor plans, huh?
Before you go on too, because one thing you said before is you're looking at a entrance on Gulf Beach Road.
Yes.
And there will also be exit.
Ingress and egress is how we have it.
Even with the traffic circle during season, people are going to know that they can bypass the Estero traffic by coming down this way. If you have an exit on that side.
Right.
We're looking at access control issues. So, as you know, the current exit is removable bollard. So, we're not locked into permanent open access there if that becomes an issue.
The FMB sign down from Times Square.
So there's opportunity here to adjust that parking area and the path through it. I would tend to want to leave it as designed here, and then if it becomes a problem, we can address it. So really, I mean, the questions that we had for everyone here is the architecture of this building. There's some options to look at. Talk about the programming. It's got flexible space. It's got two wings. One's more for younger kids recreational stuff, and one's more geared towards adults recreational activities. They're separated by a wide open area, and what that does is keeps the noise down from one to the other. This is what the exterior looks like for the amphitheater.
A question about that, Paul. Got a couple issues with it. The roof hills, I don't know what that's going to do as far as protection from any rain. And the other issue I have with it is the two pillars that would be right in the center where the people are standing. If that's a stage, it seems to me like there should be just two on the outside, some sort of microlam or beam that goes across the top to carry that weight so that center part is open.
I'm going to walk over there and...
Yeah, right where the two people are standing.
These two here?
Yeah, so the two posts to the left of them, you see there's two posts right in the middle that are structure posts, yes. Yeah, the columns. If those are going to be there, I don't see how that could really function very well as a stage if you're going to have people out in front of it watching people play in there.
Yeah, so the stage would be a mobile stage, collapsible. It also would be elevated. These can be adjusted. They can be spread out. There's no reason why they don't have to be. They're really just put out. At solid roof here, solid roof that kind of on, but heavy sail. As well, so if all game you can bring in bleach.
Did you put it at an angle coming from wide down low and then goes up?
So Paul, just so I understand, and I love the concept of combining the passive recreation center with the amphitheater. I think it's really clever. But so the stage is right there, so it's not out where the field would be.
Like we talked about, there's you. Audience in.
Oh, I see. So the concept isn't that people would be in those bleachers watching the stage. They'd be out front looking this way. Right. Okay, all right, very good.
Flexibility depending on.
That surface, is that natural or artificial?
All natural grass. Back and forth on that, but this is going to be a little. What the building might look like from the back.
Look like Terry Park.
So, where we're at right now is this is a odd that we're looking at here as an option. I'd like you guys to kind of weigh in on what direction you might like to go. This looks like a Greek temple. You've got a round sun there. I think would have the logo on it or some variation of that, maybe. This is more of a dome shaped, looks more like an airport hangar. And then we went with more of a offset, asymmetric version. And that tower there is actually what houses the elevator. The elevator exists in all three floor plans. It's just, getting a little bit funkier with the design here.
The cost is essentially the same between.
Can we see those three again?
We had originally a aluminum or a metal roof going over this thing. We opted for a flat concrete roof. You'll be able to see it better in one of these pictures here. So this is why we're kind of showing you that facade that you might see from the ground.
Why did you choose that flat roof?
Waterproofing. It's a little stronger in case we wanted to use it for.
We wanted to set this building up so that we could stay there in a floor if we had to, if this building got damaged.
Gotcha, because in my experience with flat roofs over the years of my career, I like flat roofs.
Yeah, generally you don't, but we wanted to try to create basically a concrete structure within the structure so that
Gotcha.
we had some continuity of services if this building were to be damaged in a hurricane.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I think the entrances are all it's like you're walking into a mini stadium there, Hammond Stadium, which is very inviting. And I don't know, the council can.
I prefer that one myself. Asymmetrical. The one, with the shaft on the right, with the elevator shaft on the side.
One question, I don't know if you've really been a part of this conversation, but where the arches people have some material, some of this old coquina stone, is there any way from your standpoint to incorporate that in a way that does not become burdensome from construction standpoint.
I have not seen the material. I heard it's stored off island. There, I think it would be cool to see some of that historic material be reused somewhere. It's not something we've contemplated at this point. So with direction from council, we can.
The bases at Times Square, right, that we use.
I don't know if that could be used there, but the idea.
Not the actual stone, but the look.
Similar. There's a similar look to all the pedestals at Times Square. Recall.
I think the original design some time ago. Yeah.
I can pull it up again if you want to see it.
My understanding, I think, conversation is they have, I think, 3 or 4 massive blocks. A lot of little ones they don't have that'd be, required.
Just while we're on that, Councilor Veach, I think Bay Oaks is a good option for the arches personally, and I think particularly with the school there, you've got the history, the educational piece. I was thinking if there's a way to set the arches up to at least have an arch over the walking trail that goes around the Bay Oaks facility. You could walk underneath and walk through the arch. It may not have enough material to do the double arch, but at least you do the single arch, some sense of history there. And I don't know how the rest of my colleagues feel about that, but it might be an option, particularly with those historical colleges back there, or historical cottages back there. It might be a place, particularly if the walking path goes around there, schools nearby, it just might be a nice
option.
Yep.
An option.
I can tell you, in conversations on BORCAB from a year or 2 years ago, there was a lot of pushback from putting them there just because of the historical value. There was a lot of people that felt that putting the arches where they were originally, or not at all, is kind of the way they went. They weren't very keen on putting them at Bay Oaks.
Okay.
Just as for a little.
I saw in Ray McDonald's email that was one of his options, so I don't know. Yeah, I'm new to this whole debate.
Well, they're never going to go back where they were originally. I mean, that's out of the question. So,
I think they put a lot of options up for those arches, but not many of them made sense, I think, except for maybe Bay Oaks. From the city standpoint, they have the county too, and so they're still in conversations with the county.
on this rendering, Councilman Veach, the broad leafy trees there.
Yes.
That's a good place for those.
It seems like Bay Oaks would be a good place to put oak trees.
Paul, here's
your mahoganies, either one.
Here's the more challenging question. You know, we discussed some numbers. Does this help get us to the number where we're at closer?
It gets us closer. Yeah, there's still a little work to do on our part to find value engineering opportunities. Where we landed right now is about $7 million. We're still a little bit beyond budget. We wanted to get down to that $5.5 million range. We're doing a lot.
We have to get down there though, because didn't we pick up some cost savings by not doing the Welcome Center and potentially not building the building at Bayside Parks?
This is all in. So where we're at right now at 30%, we're looking at about 7.5.
And you mentioned BORCAB. Has this information been disseminated to the BORCAB group already?
No. So we went through our 30% submittal with town staff, and then we pause until we can get movement to move forward with the next phase to bring this thing to 60, 90, 100% plans, construction documents. And this is the first time I'm presenting it outside of that 30%.
We're going to 60 on this one. Is that right? Is that
that is the next step. The supplemental task authorization for you now is to go to 100%.
They'll have a crack. They'll have a crack at it. They'll be
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, those are built in there.
Yeah, I think it's important to sort of understand how these projects get done. Okay, and while we welcome the input, we're basically at the stage where people see, when you see it at 30%, next stage is 60%. Everyone, all the stakeholders will see it again at 60%, see it at 90%, and then their final plans. We don't really, too much in between those 30% bumps, because if not, we'll be fighting over, the shape of the doorknobs forever. So, as was the case with the facade, we get to an issue that we need to get input on,
We identify that issue at one of these 30-60%, it gets resolved, and we move forward. That's how you get these projects done, because or else they just get caught up in the differing. Everyone has a great opinion, but get to the point where you just get locked up because you get differing opinions and you just keep moving forward. So right now, that's our plan. It's 30, 60, 90. We'll do a pass through the affected committee into town council.
Paul.
Yes, that's the majority of the presentation here. I just was, we kind of got to this point where, we're pushed out the rooftop. We wanted to get you guys to take a look at the facade of the building, and the programming is all encompassing. Allison.
Can you just show like the top view again?
Yeah, sure. Allison was a big portion, a big part of that discussion.
Okay, can you just hold it there?
Yeah.
So, just a couple of things for the council to note. So, see if you think of it, looking at it as an airplane. So, what we contemplate is you walk into sort of a lobby reception area. Then you have the two largest rooms, or sort of where the fuselage would be, back to back, and they could be opened to one large room or two small, divided large. You remember the dimensions on those?
Yeah. So the size and the fuselage would be like 100 by 50. So the total, two of them, 100 by 50, right? So they're often like 50 foot squares.
So you would have two large rooms, large Zoom with class or whatever. So you have those types of those there. Larger activities. And then in the wings, you have one wing that's devoted to the youth programs, and I believe that's the left wing, if I remember correctly. And the right wing is devoted to adult programs. It's just so the noise from either don't affect each other. So that was the plan. The spaces or the size of the spaces were picked by Allison to meet her programming needs. Not only our current needs, but future needs, as best as she can anticipate those. This allows for the future addition of an adjacent gym active recreation building. That would go, Paul, why don't you just point out where that would go if and when we ever get to the point where our building is so deteriorated that it needs to be replaced.
Right, so it would fall in this area here, and the recreation building demolished, and
the idea is you would literally, the buildings would be built right next to each other. We would walk, pre-built in, pre-designed a door frame would get opened up, and you'd literally walk from one building into the new building, if and when it ever gets built.
Just to kind of clarify, because I'm looking at the 30% submittal plan, and at this drawing here now, in the 30% submittal, you have like a soccer field in the back.
Yes.
Is that just not on that rendering, or is that not going to be there?
That's just not shown.
Okay. And just for kind of clarification, so what is actually changing from what we have now besides the new building? We're moving that ball field, the big ball field?
Yeah.
So, this is the plan. Ball field again. Your question on the soccer field, that size of a soccer field.
You're cutting out, so you may want to go back. I mean, people who are listening say you're cutting out. Yeah.
All right, is this better? All right.
Yeah. So,
right there.
Now, do we have a lot of demand for night games?
You have practice that happens during the weeknights after school, and then especially during in spring and soccer, or when baseball starts up. So you do have practice nightly. You would want lighting to be out there. So the issue that we had, getting all the nitty-gritty details, is we have to put lights out here and then to this area. If we put a concrete post in the middle of the soccer field, that doesn't really work. Additional lights out there to
further away from the
further away. So what we did is just shrunk down the field a little bit.
Okay, and also to be perfectly clear for anybody listening, this does not involve replacing the existing building. That existing building still is there to serve
Stays.
gymnasium function. The gym, I think, too, right there.
I think that's existing.
While you're there, the large baseball field, is that 330 feet, and does it have a fence in the back?
It does.
It's a fence and it's 330?
Yes.
Okay.
Jim?
Not anymore.
Just
to reiterate, when we were here 3 months ago, we were talking about the fact that we wanted to meet standards for Little League fields. We're not doing anything that would decertify the fields.
And just also a point that comes up is I know this is a really big capital project, but it's almost like with the building we're gaining what seems like a senior center and a youth center. Small scale. So dedicated space for seniors and dedicated space for youth activities, which I think is a big addition.
Yeah, and when we build the second phase, there will be obviously in that building. I think we had something 1,000 square feet originally planned, or kind of condensed.
Are any of the services that are in the current building, like the weight room, for instance, would they get moved into this new building, or would they stay in the old building?
They're in the old building. Any active recreation goes in the old building. The some of the things, like there's some youth activities are going on right now in the old building. Those would get pulled into the new building.
I love the idea of the versatility of the new building, with the dividers and so forth, and being able to accommodate all the different programs and everything. That's much like Lover's Key is doing down there with their new Welcome Center. It makes it so versatile. So many different uses that can be accomplished there. So that's great thinking, and also the fact that it can serve town as an alternative location during a storm that's commendable as well. A lot of thought has gone into it, and we appreciate that. More questions, Bay Oaks?
One more comment. 3% submittal. The boardwalk going to a paddle launch out in the
Yeah, that was nixed at the 30% submittal.
Okay. Now, are there opportunities to put a paddle launch on the canal?
There is. You want to point to an area that we could theoretically develop something at? And the idea is that we could put the dock part of the launch in the right-of-way area, so we wouldn't be encroaching on the canal, narrowing the canal, doing it.
Is there just one last quick question? Is there still going to be a walking path planned or running path planned around the whole?
Yeah, you can see it in there. That kind of winds through there. The next phase of our development here, we're going to be getting with an environmental consultant. We'll identify the wetlands and get a jurisdictional delineation of it. And then we'll define exactly where that falls. Again, this is conceptual right here, but the goal is to have that drawn.
Just roughly, if someone was going to take a loop on that walk, how long would that be?
Yeah, so I did the math on that. It's about a half a mile.
Okay, thank you.
I see a dead end. It's not a loop.
Well, it ties back in down here at the new kayak launch for.
Talking about on the right-hand side, if you're looping around, it dead ends.
The road.
Yeah. It's a path. You can turn around and come back.
That'll be a very nice feature because people will use that. Yeah.
We can't. The thing there is we can't cut back in through the school. The school has its requirements for security, and not a great way to loop that thing back in there.
I like what you did at the front there too, that National Fitness Court.
Yeah, you
Bring
guys.
that to the front to draw people in, the people that run by there. Is that the court, Roger, by chance, that was discussed a couple of years ago? There's a company that was going to come in and wanted to set all that up. Is that the same thing?
Part of the grant that we received.
Okay.
Just to summarize, we wanted to try to set up the building so that it really would be the community. It could be the community hub, or someone who said, like, I don't know what I feel like doing today. You could go to that building and engage with someone and find something to do. Not necessarily you had to be going there with somebody to do something. That was the concept, that you were just to go there, and it would be like a community hub where you could just go there and engage with someone to do something, or programming, or just sit down and play gin rummy with somebody if you want. So trying to create the spaces to be as flexible as possible, trying to create this community center of the town.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. So, Paul, real quick. So that when you were trying to get our input on the facade, and we saw that beautiful sort of approach to the building, is that the space that's on Estero Boulevard as well?
No, that's if you were looking from the roundabout in the middle of this picture here.
What's envisioned for the space in front of Estero at this point, or have you?
Yeah, so it's going to be landscaped. It's going to have this National Fitness Court. Fortunately, this is trimming my PDF, so you can't see the bottom, but it's got that National Fitness Court there. We're contemplating shade sails, shade structures there, and there'd be monument signage. And really, the thing that's nice about it is it kind of shows where Bay Oaks is. Bay Oaks is a recreational facility. We're promoting healthy activities. It's right there on the boulevard. You'll be able to see it, and you'll know exactly where to go to get into the park.
The other issue, Counselor, is that we were trying to say, when you stand at that entrance at Arrow, you could see the building, the recreational complex. To have that, so you could see into it and see that. And that's why it was sort of specifically aligned down that pathway, that you can see what you're getting into. So even if you didn't know what it was, you see this building, you see the sign, you see the fitness court right there. So you could almost put together what it is, without a sign saying, "Welcome to the Bay Oaks facility."
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. More comment, Mayor. Just now out of curiosity, with the old building and this newer building, and I understand that the center of the fuselage is going to be 1,000 square feet, maybe 100 by 50.
One of the rooms inside of there is, yeah.
Is it possible, or do we want to consider using this as some kind of convention space? That something we have conventions, maybe in off seasons, to bring people onto the island.
We looked at. We opened up the two large rooms in the center of the fuselage. Could we accommodate something of that nature? And the answer is yes. And being careful about expense, but we're trying to create that flexibility without jacking up the cost further. We have to get the cost going in the other direction. But that is something that is our sort of on our list to try to build in to the greatest extent possible.
It could be plumbed and wired and all that in the construction for something in the future possible.
Yes, we would plumb and wire it, but so for example, rather than 110, we would have 220 outlets put in there to allow for people who wanted to bring heating ovens in there, type of thing. It wouldn't be a permanent commercial kitchen, but where people could plug in stuff.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. Somebody just texted me a question. Is there a children's playground apart from what's at the school that kids from the public can play on?
Yeah, you can see it. Go ahead. Yes.
That'll be a public playground for children?
Yep, and we put it there specifically so that when you have little kids waiting for their big brothers and sisters while they're playing t-ball and baseball. They're close enough to where the parents can still see their kids and pay attention to the little kids, and also maybe also catch a little bit of the baseball.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, Paul, let's move on to
Okay. Did anybody care about one of these facades while we're here? Any strong feelings one way or the other? I think I heard the asymmetric one was
Councilman Allers and the support for the asymmetric.
I'd agree with that.
I'm not going to argue with the engineer and a builder, but
there you go. We'll go with that one. Yep. So we'll move on to Bayside now. So,
dramatic first page on Bayside, by the way, with the big red X. That was very. Go ahead.
So this is what the existing park looks like. We've talked about it. This is a really intense, rapidly moving project, and so now we were put on hold. Or something. So moving forward now, the design. We talked to everybody in town. We've heard lots of input from everybody around the area. We heard now where we stand is we want to have a stage area and shaded viewing space. We want to have native materials. We want to have potentially that rain garden and consistency with Old San Carlos and Times Square. Again, this is what that area looks like. Our original design, this was presented to the previous council. It had a stage, it had solar trees, a splash pad, and it sounded like we just didn't have enough to continue with that splash pad. We went to this design, which had a building which housed some of the upland facilities for the mooring field, shaded areas. We had a stage in the back, if you remember, and then that got killed. So moved on to something. It's more of just a pedestrian park with landscaping. It's a really, really rough rendering. Please forgive me, but we basically have a stage in the back. Since this has been drawn, we've looked at shrinking that stage down to be in the same flavor or vernacular as the Times Square stage, so a round type stage. The one at Times Square is about 30 feet in diameter. We'd be looking to probably shrink that down maybe to 20 feet in diameter. Be more consistent with the size of the stage that's out there now. Again, we have that rain garden, large species shade tree there. What's not shown here are the shade sails. They basically be crossing everywhere where you have the hardscape and the benches. Verify the benches are located right there. Yep, there's two of them with a space in between to get people down onto the lawn. The lawn at this point is contemplated to be natural turf for cost savings, and then. What else? So, yeah, just there will be shade sails crossing back and forth on here. Those got developed over the weekend and didn't make it.
Paul, could you go back for me to the original design that you had up there? Mention this right there, the one on the bottom left. I seem to recall that most people were in favor of that. Maybe not with the splash pad, but the openness of it, the tall trees, the sunshade, you still have the stage, but you could still see through there. Other than the splash pad, why was that eliminated? Why was that concept there eliminated?
So the reason why is because we wanted to, or we got direction from staff to look at putting in the upland facilities building. We switched from this one to the upland facilities building, and at this point, what you see on this is approximately the same thing without that splash pad. As has that rain garden up front, it still has the rows of trees.
You'll still be able to see through from the street to the water.
Depending on the size of that tree, you know, if you allow the boughs to hang down, you wouldn't be able to see through. So you want to get a big enough specimen tree that has a trunk long enough that you can.
Clearly, that's our goal. one of the comments we received is to try to use something other than palms there. So we're looking at a tall enough specimen tree that you can see under the limbs. The other thing is that based on our prior experience with the fountain, and prior council talked about having a water feature of some type. It was just we all came to joint conclusion, consensus that the maintenance and things operating is prohibitive, and no one's really been successful at it. So on a hardscape.
You said no, underneath those trees there's going to be like a water garden?
Rain garden.
Yeah.
So rain garden is just the site funnels the rain, the runoff down into that area there, and has natural, escaped type landscaping. So it's all natural, local species that want that type, want the rain to set on them, and kind of drains naturally through it. And then whatever excess would go off of a control structure there, and then would go out into the grass.
Basically, it's going to serve as the stormwater system for the parcel.
Paul, as you're facing the stage and facing the bay, what does it look like? How tall is the stage, and how much will the stage impair the view of the bay? And then what is the facade on the front of the stage? And I'm asking that because we've all talked about a Veterans Memorial. Mm-hmm. Is there enough room on the facade of the stage to really put the appropriate memorial language there? Or what's the thought on the Veterans Memorial? But it's difficult to tell what that stage looks like if you're facing it from this shot.
Yeah, this is just a really, really rough, taking away the building and then making it back into a hardscaped and park. The stage would look similar to the one that's at Times Square. So I looked at that one. We can pull that one up if we want to look at it. There's no real facade to it. It's a 18-inch tall pedestal that has good look at putting something maybe on that back end shell, the slatted thing, to put something there for the veterans tribute.
What we might want to do is move those slats to the side on in this application, so keep the view through the stage here, so you can see through water.
And then so we just got our the new revised STA back last week, and so we really haven't had a whole lot of time to look at it, which is why you're seeing this thing being a little funky. But one thing that my architect looked at was having a series of special looking bollards on one of the sides there. Pick the message that you want, pick the shape, pick all those things, and really for us, we'll provide the location. I have no problem telling you, where we think it might work out, but we're going to leave that up to someone that has maybe more experience with trying to make sure it's tribute and not necessarily memorial. There's little things in there that I
define the word bollard.
So a bollard is a concrete post about this high. I use bollard in my terminology a lot. Maybe more of a pedestal is something maybe a little more like a small obelisk. Shape, size, all of it can be.
It's basically freestanding, and would be a series of them to tell a story. And basically we would create them so that the story could be depicted on more or so of them. We don't have to lock into the message today. Could be.
No, I appreciate it. I think that has to be part of this proposal. Some significant veterans.
That is definitely on our scopes to identify that and locate it.
Okay.
We a pretty good direction, I think, now where we want to go from everything we've heard. I think at the next we'll show you exactly where those go. It'll be obviously a much more complete plan. As you can see, we've kind of been moving around. This is a moving target for us. So,
Paul, on this, I would like to get back to the council. Just one slide, as soon as you can have it ready, showing the revised page and the preliminary locations for these pedestals, and maybe just what one might look like. We'll get that to you before.
What does it look like when you're facing the stage? That would be good.
Yeah, so we'll get that to you separate from the next full-blown presentation, just so you can look at it.
I think you may be thinking of this differently than some other folks were. We had discussed having it behind where the stage is as part of that walkway that's going to be developed back there.
I have a completely open mind.
So you keep mentioning the front of the stage. I just wanted you to know that we have discussed it several times over various presentations as having it part of the back walkway.
No, I haven't thought about it that.
And I think that's what's indicated on in our book. It's not up there on that slide, but it shows it to the rear of the stage in our book.
I just hope it's not so hidden that it diminishes what we're trying to accomplish. That'd be my only.
Actually, that walkway is going to be a very used.
So the river walk or bay walk, whatever you want to call that, that's, we clearly want to have that. And then, so that's an objective. Being able to view through the stage to see the water is an objective from the park. Being able to view through the park, St. Carlos, to see the water is an objective. And being able to basically take this passive park and have all musical venue, stage venue is an objective. We have all of those objectives, and no water feature. I guess our last objective, so because of the cost and maintenance problems. So that's kind of the parameters that we're working with. For on hold, we have money left in the old STA authorization with the firm, but haven't been sort of let loose since we've abandoned the upland structure. So based on any comments you have today, we'd like to let them loose to further develop this plan. Like I said, because of starting and stopping here, we get you some supplemental information before we actually go to the full next percentage of design, just so you can kind of get caught up on what their thinking is.
Another possible placement, if you want to, like it's more of a standalone monument, is the entrance kind of on the upper left of your drawing. Because one thing I think that if we want to make a part of this walkway is still a ways away in time, right? Because we're dealing with the mooring field now, and then we're not going to apply to put the dock in walkway until after the mooring field is done.
Well, that'll be laid in. I for one, inclined to have multiple ones rather than one. To have multiple ones that tell a story, so you walk from one to another and kind of see a story. We're going to call on Allison and her exhibit experience to help us find something that facilitates to have it that no one will walk up and look at it, except if they want to
trail
tie their dog to it to tie their shoe or something. We want it so that people would actually come in and see a story. If I put a story on one board, it gets too big and massive. So, we're thinking of a couple of them. So, as you progress, you chronologically get the story.
We do an excellent job of that at Edison Board.
Yeah, so it would be something of that nature.
I think, one of the things we discussed, the options we discussed at CRAB was to, you have like a fairly general memorial, but then as part of that storyboard, you tell the local story of the involvement, like the Watchers during World War II, and some of the role the people on the island had in the military.
Right. So, one of the other things is that you don't want to set it that it's 5 and only 5. We might start with 5, and who knows, in the future we might add a 6th or a 7th. So it's kind of that concept. And, we want to kind of build the space so that we could add those as time goes on. If we wanted to add additional features, tell more stories.
And I'm just kind of really brainstorming here. I'm not necessarily advocating for this, but up kind of where that tree is on the upper left, you did dedicate space for a memorial, then you can also, there's plenty of organizations, plenty of momentum of to go and raise money to put in a memorial.
Right, well,
Memorial, I keep asking for tribute, and he hears me. He puts the word tribute in.
Tribute.
Yes.
well, the concept is really to get the placement and so that park functions. Again, we can get into the brass tacks of what's on it and does it, and whether a certain group gets to do A and the other group gets to. We can work all that out. But in terms of getting the park designed and getting it ready for us to get into bids, we just really need to know the location, the material, and the number. What actually gets attached to it is the easiest part of the whole thing. So the one that generates the most community input.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you, Paul. We're going to get down to the business end of this now, Paul, so we appreciate that. And Roger, you're looking for some action here today on the Times Square and the Bay Oaks designs.
Right, and actually, on the reason why Bayside Park is not listed here is because it has enough money in it already. It's just direction. That's why it's not necessarily an approval item. Whereas Times Square needs money to move to 100% completion, and Bay Oaks needs money to move to 100% completion. Times Square, Bayside, we believe, has enough money in it, roughly 80,000, if my math and my memory is correct. Take that to completion with an understanding of council's approval or consensus on the concept.
In moving the Times Square final design to 100%, improving those funds, will there be opportunities along the way for the business owners and everything to weigh in at all? Or is
Yes.
Yes.
It's our plan with all of these plans to come back to, there's a active committee on it at the 30, 60, and 90% stage
Construction.
of design.
Of design.
Okay. So, and then once it's at 90%, it is pretty locked in. You're in the redoing stage, which you could still do, but you're pretty locked in at that point.
Okay, so there will be opportunities along the way here.
And frankly, I want to be clear, the opportunities are at the committee meeting and at the council for these folks. If they want to come and meet with us in between, we're here, and we'll be glad. Chelsea's available, I'm available, we're glad to meet with them. But we're not setting up sort of special reviews for other groups at this point.
All right. Well, let's take these one at a time then. We'll start off with the Times Square final design. Is there a motion to allocate and appropriate the funds and approve the supplemental task force authorization number 7 in a not to exceed amount of $179,550 for Times Square 100% design, which includes design, permitting, and bidding assistance, and authorize the town manager to execute the supplemental task authorization with DRMP Inc.
Moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second? I'll second it. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. You were talking about the 90% design phase in discussion. This appears that it's going from 60% directly to 100%.
This is the money to get it to 100%.
There will be a 90%.
There will be a rest stop at 90%.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure because it wasn't listed in here. So.
Any further questions?
As far as the timeline, this design should be done so we can start after season to enough time.
Well, in the separate and independent action, the council has authorized the loan. We'll be closing at the loan very soon, and that money is going to be sitting there. So we're notwithstanding issues of
coordination with ongoing activities, whether it's the businesses in Times Square or something special going on at Bay Oaks that we have to accommodate. Our plan is to go full speed ahead unless there's some objection or concern raised by the community.
Further discussion? Motion was made by Vice Mayor Hasselfrost, second by Mayor Murphy, to approve these funds. Hearing no further objections, the motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next item is the approval of the STA number 8 for Bay Oaks Recreational Campus final design. This is to allocate and appropriate funds and approve the supplemental task authorization number 8 in the not to exceed amount of $479,960, 100% design, which includes campus design, permitting, and bidding assistance to 100%, and authorize the town manager to execute the supplemental task authorization with DRMP, Inc. Is there a motion to approve this allocation? Authorization.
So moved.
Moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion?
The same question that I had in the last one, that there will be the stops along the way because they're not listed. People have input, be able to have input. Thank you.
For discussion? The objection? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next item is the mooring field upland services renewal. Roger? Yourself self-explanatory here.
Yes, sir. There's a final one-year option on the current agreement, and we think at this point in time that's the best approach for the town. Chelsea has met with the service provider and shared some concerns we've had regarding issues in the operation, and we're confident that they will do their best to address those concerns. So this provides us with a year's period to continue to look at alternatives for a longer-term agreement with them, and explore other options that the council may be interested in us looking at, along with the Anchorage Advisory Committee for the mooring field services.
Okay, the staff recommendation is to approve to exercise the final one-year option. Is there a motion from the council?
I would move to exercise the final one-year option for a professional services agreement for upland services.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second it.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Objection? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next item is fiscal year 2019-2020 reappropriation. Approve the reappropriation fiscal year 2019-2020.
So just to remind the council, we have closed fiscal year 20. From a finance and budgetary standpoint, it was very successful. We had surplus revenues and under expenditures to the tune of $700,000. The council reappropriated as part of the budget, 21 budget. So we had surplus revenues and we had less expenses than originally budgeted, and that we view as a very positive thing in terms of the town's operation. This is just really a realignment of a couple of expenses. They're listed in the attachment. They're footnoted for you. The two major ones deal with the original plan for the 20 budget was for the general fund to loan the stormwater utility money for maintenance. That loan was not needed, therefore it was not implemented. So we're reflecting that. The other one is that we have accumulated expenses in our building services and planning department for TPI project, although they have not come in and pulled their permits. We're very anxious for them to do that. But sort of front end those services, waiting for the building permit process. So we're just recognizing the fact that
we had those expenses, and at this point, we don't have the revenues. We will be getting them shortly based on what I'm reading in the papers.
Is there a motion to approve the aforementioned reappropriation?
Moved.
Moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Then moved and seconded. Discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Next item is final public comment. Who wishes to speak? You wish to speak? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
Jason Ingram again from Mango Readers. Just to apologize for interrupting you earlier, but the first session when we were here was more of a brainstorming session with the first concept, the artist rendering that they had given us, and that was more of a, what is our input? We had never saw those renderings prior to that, so of course you're going to have maybe some disagreement from one business owner to another, but that doesn't mean we're not all on the same page of where we want to go here. We would just like to have some input and not have it just thrown down our throats of this is what's going to happen. You're going to be shut down for this many months. We have employees. We all have families. And that's time and money to all of us. Some of those folks live on this island. A lot of the folks don't. They can't go weeks and weeks without paycheck. I know we have to take the time to do it, but just please keep that in mind going forward, that it's just not us that's affected. You got people that have kids, families. They need us going forward. Just keep that in mind.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much for that comment. I know I can speak for the rest of the council when I say that we plan to move forward with this project as we always do in a spirit of cooperation. We're going to try to do what's right by you guys, and we're going to work. It'll all work out in the end, believe me. Anyone else? John.
Lalo, Pete's timeout. I totally agree with Jason. We are all on the same page. Definitely are. And when I look at these beautiful drawings and stuff, they are great work, a lot of work from your staff, you guys, and we appreciate it. I don't want to feel that we're not appreciated. One thing I do see is the lack of color. I not noticed that it just was like things gray. So maybe think this out and there's more color, individuality between the businesses. When you were talking about using the same tables, the reason that he has brown chairs and I have brown chairs, but his slats go this way, mine go this way, because I own mine, we can differentiate. As a customer, when you're walking up, they come up and walk into his place and they're looking for my menu. We don't want gates, we don't want. That's how we always individualize between each businesses. We're all in competition against each other, but we're all in this together to bring everyone down to one menu. So there's a lot of things to discuss. The stormwater is huge. The maintenance. And who brought up us buying the actual structures and we just maintain it ourselves? Has that even been discussed? Because we haven't been talked to. That could save you a ton of money. A ton of money. We take care of our own stuff. So, there you go.
Hey, John, thank you. As I say, there's going to be a lot of opportunities to kick this around some more before it happens. Anyone else? Lee Melsick.
My name's Lee Melsick. I'm a member of BORCAB. A little confused over some of the things I heard today. Presentation. We have been working this plan for 3 years now. Real proud of our board. Worked very hard on this. Thought we presented a good plan for your consideration. FYI, the BORCAB board voted, I believe, unanimously advised to tear down, our recommendation to tear down the current gym, the basketball court, build a new one. The reasoning for that was because it's our understanding that that place is going to cost more and more and more money to maintain. Old, it was built in 85. It was built wrong to begin with. The roof was a terrible design. It's leaked for decades. Our reasoning was that it's going to cost this town more and more money to maintain. The board also voted to recommend, on these next two items, I did not vote this way, but it was a majority vote to build a road through the lot, moving one way into the campus.
The boulevard.
I'm a little confused as to whether that road has been taken out. Apparently it has.
No, it has been.
Okay, I didn't hear that today. I heard signage and okay. It was also voted to recommend the Welcome Center building. And apparently that's been taken out. I think I can speak for the whole committee. We haven't been told of this. We haven't been advised of this. Apparently this has all been done, and I'm a little confused by that, frankly. I think that we should have been at least presented with what was going to be presented here today as the final outcome. We were not. So I just have a problem with that. Because, as I said, we've worked for 3 years very hard on this project. I think this new campus is going to add significantly to the quality of life on this island, and that was our main objective. We understand that the final decision is made here. There's no problem with that. But I'm just a little confused on why we weren't addressed more on what this final decision is from the town manager. And obviously you have the final decision on this. But I think that we could have worked a little closer, administration.
Thank you, Lee. Anyone else? Okay. This item is town manager's items.
Mr. Mayor, I don't really want to get to a back and forth, but I do want to address one point from the speakers. Actually, two of the speakers. One is that the House Committee gave us very many great ideas. Fortunately, when we put numbers on those great ideas, the project was $15 million. And so we had to find a way to combine buildings and do things. We attempt to get the cost of the building, in the realm of what my understanding of council policy was to try to fit these three projects in under $10 million. So that's what we did. So we combined buildings. We made decisions to not replace something that doesn't need to be replaced today. And we put our priority in new amenities for the public versus replacing existing amenities. So in my work experience, I've done 4 or 6 of these projects in 1 year. Out of multiple years in 1 year. And there just comes to a point where you have to narrow the field of input so you can move forward. Not to say that their hard work isn't appreciated. It's not that we are not willing to share our thought process with the particular committee. But at some point, we just can't keep renegotiating something that we just can't do. Now, that being said, the building that was proposed to you today be the physical activity replacement building, and the passive recreation and community center needs to be the part put on hold. We see the need for a new amenity versus a replacement amenity, but felt that at least I think you all were contemplating that in terms of the direction you gave us today. So we're trying to accommodate places for future amenities that the committee is interested in, but recognizing the real factor of a budget, putting our priorities into new amenities that we currently don't have. And I'll stop speaking about there. The other thing is, I don't speak regularly with all the members of the merchants in Times Square. I do speak fairly regularly with at least one of them. And to the extent they have questions or concerns, they have exhibited in the past the ability to reach out to me and talk to me. And I think they would tell you that I get back to that person usually always the same day and usually within an hour or less most times. So if you have any questions or concerns, they can definitely get their group together, and they can definitely meet with myself and Chelsea, as was enumerated earlier, and we'd be glad to speak to them and get their ideas about things. We're not worrying about the tables. I mean, tables is great to talk about, but we're not worried about those at this point because we're not there. With the old tables, we could say with the new tables, we could have different tables at each business. There's plenty of time to talk about those types of things. But we're available and you can speak to them, as well as any committee at its regular meeting, as well as any committee member between meetings. I guess I'll stop there.
Thank you. Town Attorney.
The only item I have, Mr. Mayor, is just briefly to advise the council, as you probably already know, based upon some partially erroneous reporting in the newspaper, that a lawsuit has been initiated by Mr. Root and Mr. Kramer, the owners of the 2 parcels that were previously sought the dune walkover to gain access to the beach. We will just wanted to briefly mention it because there's been some misstatements in some of the news releases or press releases or articles, and we are proposed to distribute to you before the end of the day this afternoon some bullet points that, if you all are if they are acceptable to you, we are going to instruct the public PIO to post them on the town's website, just to dispel some any potential rumors or misstatements of fact that may be out there.
Statements of fact by whom?
By Mr. Root and Mr. Kramer.
I contacted Mr. Herron because I was unhappy that what I believe to be an outright lie was stated in the newspaper, that they do not have to get a special exception if they win their lawsuit, and that is not the case. They still have to get a special exception. town still has jurisdiction over that area. So I asked that a correction about that be forth and was waiting to hear about it.
Further?
Okay, thank you.
I guess my question about that, though, John, is that if you're going to give that to us after the meeting, then we're in essence going to be voting. I was told before when I asked for you to ask people outside of a meeting for a vote on something that you couldn't do that.
Well, staff, have this is, I would view this as more of an administrative matter than it is a council. I mean, I mentioned it because you're not the only one who's, and not just on that side of the dais, who's mentioned concerns about some of the misstatements, and so there was already discussion internally at staff of potentially doing this to dispel some rumors or some misstatements of fact, and so we're just following through with that, and want you all to be able to take a look at it so you're not surprised when it gets put out there.
Yes, my reply is that I would have liked to have seen some action a lot sooner because I asked for this a long time ago. If you're going to correct something that's inaccurate, you need to do it soon. The public memory is short. So I would have liked to have seen it a while ago.
I do think, though, that sometimes when you see the problem in the news, then by then it's already out. Not likely to go and correct
but
it.
if they're notified to publish a correction, they like to do it the next day or the day after. I mean, it's been, I think, about 2 weeks now. This outright misstatement was published.
It was also the story that I saw. It seemed to imply that that they were suing the town, and they're not, in fact, suing the town. They're suing the state.
That implication keeps being made.
To that end, too, it would be nice to see this come to an end in a civil way. But Mr. Root is also making unfounded accusations to me and my family through this.
If you all wish, it'd only take me less than a minute and a half to read you the points that have been developed. So, for discussion purposes, has been widely reported in local news outlets. Mr. Root and Mr. Kramer, through their corporate entities, Squeeze Me In LLC and Texas Hold'em, have filed a quiet title lawsuit against the state of Florida. Beyond that, there has been a lot of rumors, suggestions, innuendos, and misstatements regarding this issue. So here are the facts based upon public record documents. So that was part of the job that we were trying to do, is make sure that our statements are factual and can be verified by reviewing the public records. Mr. Root and Mr. Kramer's new lawsuit does not involve the town. Mr. Root and Mr. Kramer have sued the state of Florida and only the state of Florida. The new lawsuit does not seek the dissolution of the Little Estero Island Critical Wildlife Area, the CWA, as commonly referred to. The sole relief sought, and this is from their own lawsuit, as a court determination that the plaintiffs own in fee simple the accreted land behind their homes. That's it. It's more, no less than just that. Nowhere in their lawsuit did Mr. Root or Mr. Kramer ask the court to dissolve the CWA. Irrespective of the conclusion of this litigation, Mr. Root and Mr. Kramer are required by the town code to obtain a special exception to build what they call the dune walkover. Per section 34.652 of the town LDC, all beaches, private or publicly owned, and significant wetlands whose preservation is deemed critical to the town are designated as being zoned EC, environmental critical. Furthermore, accreted beaches or wetlands, whether by natural cause or through beach nourishment or artificial fouling, are automatically assigned the EC zoning district. That's in your code. We cite to the section of the code. So whether or not they gain this through litigation or because of the alleged accretion of this area, under our code, that accreted sand automatically is zoned EC. And under our code, any development within EC, particularly this dune walkover, needs a special exception. Both local circuit court and the Second District Court of Appeal have unequivocally ruled that Mr. Rude and Mr. Kramer must comply with the town's LDC and obtain a special exception for any dune walkover proposed to be built within the town's EC zoning district. In circuit case number 17CA 4069, in Forest Lee County, Judge Dury ruled that town staff has correctly concluded under section 6366B2 of the LDC that the proposed minor structure must meet the special exception process because it's not permittable by right due to the fact that it's not a perpendicular dune walkover. This categorization was confirmed during the appeal hearing. The town staff member testified to the council the code states that this type of minor structure requires a special exception. That order was upheld on appeal by the Second District Court of Appeal in Second DCA case number 2D18-3603. Finally, the last bullet point is town is treating Mr. Rude and Mr. Kramer no different than any other property owner similarly situated. In fact, only 2 or 3 months prior to the public hearing before the town council on their special exception application, the town required Lee County to apply for and obtain a special exception to replace the 4 existing publicly owned beach dune walkovers at Lynn Hall Park because they are located within the town's EC zoning district.
Okay.
I'm good with that language.
I guess simply put, even if the critical wildlife area goes away, they still need to come in for a special exception.
That's not what the suit's about, though. He just
So
said
I'm sorry. I think I hear a kind of basic question. What's the lawsuit about? Because under our zoning code, as ruled on already by 2 courts, they have to get a special exception.
John, while I have you here, were you able to see Mayor Gelber's comments from Miami Beach? Were you able to see those on TV? What he said?
No, I can't specifically.
Well, I don't have them verbatim, but I watched them, and his comments were to the effect that it's out of control down here. That they're showing the clubs and everything with mobbed and everything else. There's just nothing that I can do because of the governor's order, and that's in direct conflict of what you advised us the last time. And somewhere in there, there's a gap, and I want to get to the bottom of it.
I believe Mayor Gelber is partially incorrect. I do not believe that, or rather, my reading of the plain language of the governor's order says that fines, I'm paraphrasing, imposed up to the date of his executive order are the collection of those are suspended. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. It doesn't say that they can't continue to be imposed. If you wish, I can contact the city of Miami Beach to get clarification. I have
Why don't you do that?
Manager is a personal friend of mine.
And also, you advised us that you came to that opinion based on some of the conversations that you've had with colleagues of yours throughout the state.
That is correct.
We felt the same way. And okay, I'm just looking for some verification here.
I'm not the lawyer in the room, but I just want to say this, that there's nothing, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, there's nothing stopping governor from issuing a new order tomorrow, further tightening his ability to control this issue.
That is correct. We're clarifying.
Right.
So, just, I'm aware of some of your concerns. I don't want to be the stated case for him to.
Don't want that either.
For him to say, well, thank you for pointing out my oversight. Now I'm going to, really lock this thing down. So, we've taken the approach, and we continue to take the approach, as I said earlier, of asking people to do the right things cooperatively, perhaps not because they absolutely have to, but cooperatively because it's in everyone's best interest. And we recognize it's a minor hardship, but it helps us avoid a major hardship. And I can't state that more emphatically. I know all of you have. please encourage people to socially distance and wear a face mask when they can.
Thank you. Okay, council members' items. Councilman Allers.
Just want to let everyone know that the Fort Myers Beach Art Association is reopening today. So stop by and check out some art.
For the Vice Mayor. Councilman Allers.
Just a brief matter. Roger, just want to make you aware, and Chelsea, if she's still watching, that, and my colleagues, I'm sure my colleagues have seen it. Out on the southern end of the Wyndham Hotel, on the southern end of the island, starting there and about 3/4 of a mile south from there, the beach is eroding dramatically and has eroded dramatically in the last 6 to 9 months. And it's to the point now during high tide that you can't walk along there, you can't ride your bike because you run into vegetation. There's not necessarily an easy path around it. And I was kind enough to discuss this with Councilor Hasselfrost, at least the concept of where one goes for redress. She had given me a report, which is very helpful, which I'll read. She just gave it to me today, from the engineering firm who manages this. It's dated 2014, but still, I'm sure there's some great information in there. I just wanted to bring it to your attention as you interface with this engineering company and with the county. Councilor Hasselfrost interfaces through her role with the county. I wanted to bring it to your attention because I think normally these things take years, and I know there's some funding challenges with the coronavirus issue with the county and with the entities that generally address these things. But I just think it's getting, sure why. I know the island is an ever-evolving island, or devolving, however you want to look at it. And I just think that area, though, particularly because you want to always be able to transverse the whole island, the 7-mile island along the front of the beach. And I think we're getting to the point where there's some areas, particularly during high tide, that's going to be challenging. I know we've got some renourishment things going on the north end, which I fully support. Just wanted you to just bring it to your attention and bring it to the staff's attention so they can kind of continue to monitor that, because I think it's much more severe and it's happened much more quickly than I think most people would have expected.
Councilor, thank you for sharing that with me, and the council re-upped our agreement with Mr. Trips, and I'll task him to begin to take a look at that.
Yeah, just to comment on what Mr. Vanderholt said. I was down during one of our just a regular kind of high tide, and there was water continually from the pass almost all the way up to the Wyndham, and the lagoon was fully tidal throughout there. It was really pretty extraordinary. I have spoke to some constituents who live down there who are concerned this is going to be a permanent thing, because even when the water's not there, it leaves a kind of a muddy thing through. You know, we are in a sandbar. We're in a sand dune, and things move around. Also, just point out, a lot of these infrastructure projects we do, I think that the road is a good lesson, that it was painful when it goes in, and as someone who is northwards fast, it is worth it when it's done. I understand this is going to be difficult for the people and the businesses in Times Square. I just want to let them know these are taxpayer dollars who are going to really renovate an area that they're going to be the primary beneficiary of. It's going to be painful, but at the end, it's going to be good for everybody, and especially for those businesses. And to comment on the budgetary items, I would say this, that as far as the Cadillac plan, maybe people were told to dream big for BORCAB. I have no problem if town sends a clear message that they want a $15 million Bay Oaks, but I'd want to see that as some kind of referendum or something to say that they want to spend the money, not leave it up to council. All I have.
Okay, I just have a couple of comments. The comment about the beach down there. I remember when I had to walk from Island's End, all in front of Carlos Point, and all the houses down there, these houses that are in dispute right now with the walkover and so forth, when those were all seawalls. You had to, and on the high tide, you had to walk in this much water to walk the beach. It was before Little Estero Island. But, so things change. Things change, and it's dynamic, as was pointed out by Councilman Veach. The other item is regarding the board cab and the comments that were made by Mr. Melsick. He kept saying, "I'm confused," but what I kept hearing is, "We've been slighted." That's what I kept hearing. And I just want those people on that committee to know, all the committees for that matter, but this one in particular right now, that we will be forever grateful for all the work that you've accomplished to date regarding redevelopment of Bay Oaks, the campus. Every successive council from here on out, and all the people that are going to enjoy that, will have you to thank for that, for bringing that forward in the first place. So, while there may be changes to the original think big, dream big concepts, the initial impetus was there from the start, from that group, and we'll be forever in your debt for that. So please don't feel slighted. Just feel proud that you were able to contribute the way you did. We were thankful as a council and as a town. My last comment is the town employees. One more time, I'd just like to say congratulations to those members, town employees today who were recognized. And compliment you, Roger, that you've put together a terrific team here. And I don't know if people tell you enough, but I mean, I've never seen such a dynamic group of people that work in one area at one time. You're to be commended for that. I wish all the employees here well, and we're fortunate to have you all. And thank you for all the good work that you do. That being said, is there anything else from any of the members for the good of the order here? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Move. Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. We are adjourned at 12:22. Thank you.